34-year-old auto center manager Bradley Duran is suing his 11-year-old son Bradley Jr.'s school principal, Edward Dial, for his son's broken collarbone. The school says it was an accident and they did everything right.
Order, all rise. Everybody has to rise. Judge, this is number 305 on the calendar in the matter of Duran versus Calvary Baptist. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated.
Mr. Duran, this is your son, I assume.
That's correct.
The subject of this lawsuit, who was enrolled in the defendant's school. Going to the 6th grade?
Yeah, right at the beginning of 6th grade, that's correct.
Was this his first year at the school?
Second year.
And within the first couple of weeks of school, he was injured.
On the 4th day.
How was he injured?
He was coming from daycare excuse me, he was coming from his class at the end of school, going to the daycare facility on the same premises. And in between passing with another young man, another one of the kids at school, they just said hi to each other, and Bradley continued to walk to daycare. The other young man came up from behind him, picked him up and threw him into the ground and broke his collarbone.
Did he have any medical treatment at the school?
From what I understand, he did not. I was not even called. I was at work. I only worked maybe 5 to 8 minutes away at the most. And I didn't get a phone call for probably 45 minutes. And at the time that I got the phone call, you know, he was real hysterical. I mean, there was something wrong because he was very, very hysterical. And I said, you know, what happened? What happened? And you know, I couldn't get one thing out of another, so I said, okay, keep him in the office. Keep him in the office, and I'll be there. And they said, we close at 4 o'clock. I said, fine, I'll be there. I was there in 10 minutes. I was there. Went to the office, and he was not in the office right where I asked him to keep him. They sent him back to daycare, went over to daycare, and he wasn't even there. They didn't know where he was. So by this time, I was fuming. And you could tell that he was all hysterical. You could see the bone had already come up and down. I got the x-rays right here, and it shows it big time. It's right there, and he was in a lot of pain.
Let me see the x-rays. You took him to the emergency room first, I assume? This is where you had the x-rays taken?
Yeah, I called my wife. As soon as I took him back to my work, called my wife, and we came back and took him over to the Rancho San Antonio, to the medical center.
Have you seen the x-ray, sir?
No, ma'am.
They said it was almost broke in half.
I see. You're talking about right over here.
Yeah. Said it wasn't a fracture. It was a break.
Well, you certainly could see that through the skin. Show this to Mr. Dial, please. All right. Well, I assume that after this incident at the school, you didn't want your son returning to that school. And what arrangements did you make with the defendant?
I had sent a tuition payment, and I had put a stop payment on that, of course. And you know, we agreed that, yeah, the tuition is no problem. We shouldn't pay for that. I asked for full reimbursement on the books, and so I turned in all the books. I got a signed copy that says they were all returned. They said they could not give me a full reimbursement on the books because he was already in school for 4 days. And I said, 4 days? He's barely even started.
Did you ever get reimbursed for the books?
I got reimbursed for 1 book. They actually sent me a check for a partial reimbursement, put stop payment on that, and said they weren't going to give me anything.
How much were all the books?
$232.94.
And what was the check that they sent you?
The first check that they sent me?
No, just how much did you get back for the book?
$16.95, excuse me.
What else?
We were also asking for the medical bills to be paid for. And if I break it down, we paid probably close to $600, or we're having to pay about $600 out of pocket.
Well, that's what I want to know. I want to know what you have to pay out of pocket.
Right.
Now, you're suing the defendant for $5,000 for injury that occurred in his school, which means that you have to establish to my satisfaction that there was some sort of negligence on the part of the defendant. Now, I assume you're here to tell me, sir, why there was no negligence on your part.
Well, as soon as we could talk to Brad and find what had happened.
Were you there?
Talk to him. No, ma'am. This young lady was there. I was.
So you weren't there?
No, ma'am.
Step up. Your name?
Laura Brame.
And who are you?
I was his 6th grade teacher for the 3 days he was at school.
Were you the first person from the school that he saw after this injury?
He went to the office after the injury.
Who was in the office?
The secretary, and she sent for me, and I came to the office, and he was upset and yelling and screaming more about the young man that had hurt him. And, you know, he needs to get in trouble, and he needs to get in trouble. And I tried to tell him Mr. Dial would take care of it. I would write a note, you know, and he would take care of the problem. And no, he has to get in trouble, and I want him to get in trouble. And I kept asking him also, you know, are you hurt? Do you want me to call Mom? All he said was, my shoulder hurts.
Okay,
and
first clue, my shoulder hurts. So what did you do?
So I tried to calm him down, gave him some ice, took him to...
Just a second.
To,
you tried to calm him down. You gave him some ice. What'd you give him ice for?
To put on his shoulder.
Had you looked at his shoulder?
No.
You mean you didn't look at it?
I didn't.
The answer was no. You didn't
no,
look
I mean,
at
I
it.
didn't take...
Did the secretary, in your presence, look at his shoulder?
No.
And this was a summer day?
It was,
right?
it was, yes,
September.
Yeah.
So it was warm. So he was wearing a light shirt.
I don't know
Right.
what he was wearing.
Well, it had to be a light shirt. He wasn't wearing a bulky sweater.
No.
Right. And that break,
I mean,
clearly...
I mean, there was no sticking out or anything.
Did you touch it?
Yes.
You mean, are you telling me that you touched his shoulder and you didn't see or feel that his bone was protruding from his shoulder?
No, ma'am.
Well, you should take a look at the x-rays. You can clearly see that this bone is sticking out there.
So, but he didn't seem to be screaming in terrible pain. He just said it hurt, it hurt.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
He had left the daycare area without anybody's permission.
Somebody's supposed to watch him all the time. You have a teacher, she's busy doing other work, he disappears, you act as if it's the 11-year-old's fault.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Bradley Duran wants his son, Bradley Jr.'s medical bills and punitive damages for a broken collarbone. Principal Edward Dial and teacher Laura Brame say they did everything possible.
Okay, so what did you do next?
He was just adamant about Benny has to get in trouble, he has to get in trouble. And so I walked him to the daycare area to calm him down, because by then school was out and people were around the office and stuff, and I thought, well, if I get him out here, I'll calm him down. I went...
What's in the daycare?
It's our after-school program.
Well, there are other children there.
Yes.
Well, that was your next mistake. First mistake was taking him out of an office, which is the office of the building, which you could exclude all other children and keep him in one place, away from other children. Because quite frankly, with that kind of injury, if another child came up to him and bumped him or threw him, he would have been in more serious trouble. So you took him to the daycare center, and what did you do with him there?
I signed him in at 2:30. So the injury happened between 2:10 and 2:15, because I had kept the kids after school because they had been arguing before, and we thought we had it settled. And so I went and I wrote a note to Mr. Dial. I came back to the daycare area to get him, to take him to the office.
Who was in the daycare area when you left him there, other than other children?
The daycare director.
Did you have a conversation with her, or did
Yes.
you just sign him in?
Yes, I told her that he had, you know, his shoulder hurt, and that I would be back in a moment and see, you know, if he was calmed down enough to let me know what, because I had asked him, I said, you know, we'll call Mom. Do you want, you know, does it hurt bad enough to call Mom? And he wouldn't answer. He just wanted to know that Benny was going to get in trouble.
How old is he?
6th grade.
How old?
I guess 11.
You don't let an 11-year-old make those judgments. You make those judgments. You're the adult. He says, shoulder hurts. You call his parent and you say, his shoulder hurts. Come and get him right away from the office.
Okay. So 5 minutes later, I came back, and he was coming from the other side of campus. He had left the daycare area without anybody's permission. He left the daycare area, got a Gatorade, and came back. He was walking back with a Gatorade in his hand. And so then so he was calmed down enough. I said, let's go call Dad. And I called him on, he was talking to his father on the phone. And his dad must have told him, I can't come right now. And he says, well, you pick me up when I tell you to pick me up. And he was yelling and screaming at his dad, cussed at him, and said, you know, you tell your boss to go to, and wasn't to Walmart down the street, you know, he told him. And then finally, so I said, Brad, you know, I need to talk to your dad. And his dad said, well, I'll be there as soon as I can. I said, he'll be in the office. It closes at 4 o'clock.
What'd you bring him back to the office for?
Because I was taking care of the problem in the office.
How were you taking care of the problem in the office without him being there?
He was in the office.
No. Listen to what you just said to me. You said you took him from the office to the daycare
to cool
sign
down.
him in. Why did you take him there to cool down? That's what I don't understand.
Because you don't understand. You weren't there to see the picture of how upset and irate he was.
So then you keep him isolated. You don't turn him over to another situation. Especially, he's 11 years old. He walks across the campus to get a Gatorade someplace. I mean, that's just not smart. So I could understand. The reason I ask you these questions is because I can understand why Mr. Duran was annoyed enough to take his son out of school and place him someplace else. Because with the procedure that you followed, clearly, in my judgment, was inappropriate. You have an 11-year-old child who's hysterical. You're not expecting him to make good sense out of why he's hysterical. But clearly, he said his shoulder hurt, and based upon the x-rays that I saw, that bone was sticking up right through practically right through his skin. It may not have broken through his skin, but it certainly was protruding. I mean, even Mr. Dial saw that, right, sir?
Saw that.
Absolutely right. Okay. So, mistake. Then his father came.
No, wait.
Me part of it is I'm the boss of my place, so I'm the one that says when to go. Of course.
What does that have to do with the price of tomatoes?
Yeah, I was there immediately.
Go ahead.
So then I sat him down in the office waiting for his father, and then I went over to the daycare and told them, I said, if the office closes, then Brad will be coming over. And then sometime the secretary in the office looked up from her desk a while later, and he was gone to daycare without permission. No one had, no one had said you could go.
You keep talking about this 11-year-old kid getting permission. Somebody's supposed to watch him. What do you mean she looked up when he wasn't?
He just got up and left. He walked to daycare. He didn't, the secretary wasn't, just doing she was doing her work, and she looked up, he was gone.
Somebody's supposed to watch him. He's an injured child. He's an injured child in your care. You're not supposed to act cavalierly. You sign him in with other kids. You tell the teacher to watch him at the daycare. He leaves. He goes and gets a Gatorade. Somebody's supposed to watch him all the time. You have a teacher. You have somebody in the office who you leave him with. She's busy doing other work. He disappears. You act as if it's the 11-year-old's fault.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
There was no emergency in this call. Well, you turned out to be wrong. His problem was that he broke his shoulder. Then you're in your car and you get over there. 2 seconds. You don't wait to put your lipstick on.
Closed captioning, sponsored in part by Real Cases, Real People, Judge Judy. Bradley Duran is suing his son's school for Bradley Jr.'s broken collarbone.
Miss Brain, let me ask you this question, madam. He seems like a perfectly responsible man. If some official had called him from the school and said, your son has been in an accident, I've checked him over, where he's indicated his shoulder was injured. It appears that there's a bone sticking out. We're going to hold him in the office until you get here. How fast do you think he would have gotten over there? Instead, he gets a call, well, he's hysterical, and he says his shoulder hurts, but we're sending him over to daycare. That was the call. There was no emergency in this call. There's no emergency, and you're telling me the story after you know that he broke his shoulder. I mean, there's difference. I've had a lot of kids. They call me up, right? Adam hit his head. Oh, so tell him to sit down and put ice on his head. Adam hit his head, and I think it requires stitches. Then you're in your car, and you get over there. 2 seconds. You don't wait to put your lipstick on. You run over there. It depends upon the tone and what the person on the other hand, the information that the person on the other end is telling you, if they are not in a state of concern, your concern was you felt as if this young man was in more of an emotional concern over the other boy who would hurt him, and that's what you thought his problem was. Well, you turned out to be wrong. His problem was that he broke his shoulder. And you didn't convey that to his father when you spoke to him, that it appeared that he was seriously injured. And it didn't appear that way to you because you never looked. Period. Now, you indicated that there had been some problem with the boys that day.
With several boys.
Was he one of them?
Yes.
Was the other little boy who was involved in this incident one of them?
Yes, I mean, it was just arguing. It wasn't fighting, fist fight or anything. It was just mouthy type stuff. And all the,
who was there? You? Did
no,
you observe this?
the PE teacher. It was during PE. And then during lunch also.
All right, so during physical education and during lunch, it was reported to you that a small group of boys, how many?
Probably 5 or 6.
Were involved in a verbal altercation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And this was before he was injured.
Yes.
So what steps did you take as his teacher to ensure that during any free time that they had, these little 11-year-olds were escorted to and from where they had to go?
Well, I talked about it in class.
And you sat down with the class as a whole or with these boys in particular?
Well, both. Outside the door with a few, and then inside with the class, letting them know that we're not going to have fighting or whatever on the playground or anywhere, in the classroom or anything.
When you spoke to them individually, was this young man there?
Yes.
What about the other young man who caused the injury? He was there?
Yes.
And what did they both say to you?
They were all talking, all the 5 or 6, well, he did this and he did that and whatever, but I can't remember exactly word for word what was going on.
So then you had your class.
Mm-hmm.
What time was your class over?
At 2:05. And I let them out between 2:10 and 2:15.
And that's when he was injured?
Yes, at the end of class.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. Want justice? Call 1-888-800-JUDY.
Mr. Dial?
Yes, ma'am.
Your school's responsible. Because you weren't there during all of these things, so I'm very glad you brought your teacher. Let me tell you what my sense is, sir, from what I heard. The teacher of the 6th grade class receives a report from 2 other people in the school indicating that 4 to 5 boys have been involved in sufficient bad behavior towards each other to warrant the reports. She has a class, and outside the class, she says that she spoke, and I'm not even going to ask this young man anything, because she says she spoke to this young man, the other young man, but they're all jabbering, talking, he did this to me, he did that to me, right? So she takes them into class, and then she has a nice discussion, let's all be nice, and we don't fight in this school, that we don't have any fighting. And then they're dismissed, unescorted, by anybody, and within 5 minutes, he's injured. So as far as I'm concerned, that whole problem was taken care of very poorly by your teacher. The next thing that happened was he's injured, he's taken to an office. Nobody examines him. He's 11 years old. And the injury that he had was clearly visible. You, Mr. Duran, are suing for $5,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment is to the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Things go well for you, my friend.
Thank you.
Ready? Hope you do well, buddy.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
We're sorry this young man was hurt.
I ran to my dad and told him that my collarbone was broke, and when I pulled my arm up, it just sprang down really quick. So my dad knew there was something wrong, so he took me back to his store, and then my mom picked me up and took me to the hospital.
I guess from now on, though, I will be more careful and check every little injury out.
They didn't handle this right at all. No way.
Labrador. He wants the veterinarian bills paid. Judith says it wasn't her dog who did it.
Order, all rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please, all rise. Your Honor, this is case number 270 on the calendar in the matter of Snodgrass versus Peterson. Judge, the parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
According to you, Mr. Snodgrass, you have a dog.
Yes, ma'am.
That you keep in the backyard.
Yes.
Female dog. You look outside your window one day, and lo and behold, you see your dog engaged in fornication.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I clean
Yes,
that up?
ma'am.
You did very well, Judge.
Just trying to find just the right word. With a strange dog.
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of dog do you have?
Actually, I have a yellow lab.
So that's a pretty big dog.
Good-sized dog, medium-sized dog.
And this interloper
Yes, ma'am.
was what kind of dog?
Actually, it was, I'm not sure exactly what kind of dog it was. It was maybe some kind of, maybe an Australian Shepherd heeler mix, but it was not a dog that I could identify
But
as a
also a
breed of
big dog.
Probably about a medium-sized dog, maybe similar in size to the dog I had.
Well, dog that evidently picked the right size mate anyway.
Yeah.
So you go charging outside, and what did you do?
Well, actually, the kennel was located on the side of my house, so I was delivering water to my dog when this happened. When the interloping dog saw me, he scaled the fence, and so I went back inside.
Just a second. You mean just like that? He, he disengaged?
He disengaged.
Disengaged.
He quit his business right there and decided that he better hightail it out of there. And I, at that point in time, kind of said, "Hey,
Isn't it
what are
amazing
you
how
doing?"
guys can do that?
Dogs can do that.
What?
Dogs can do that.
That's right. So after this happened, I did not recognize the dog. I mean, I only saw him for a moment, but I didn't recognize him as any of the dogs that are in my neighborhood. So I went back inside, and I saw him kind of skipping down the sidewalk. He seemed pretty happy. And,
Pretty happy.
Seemed pretty happy at that point in time.
Okay.
And he was kind of going down the sidewalk, so I knew that I had to figure out whose dog it was. So I grabbed my wife's camera, hopped in her car, and proceeded to just observe this dog, and knowing that at some point in time he would go home.
You followed the boy.
I followed him. And he went here and there, and after about a half an hour or so of following him, he jumped over another fence. He went kind of down a little ditch canal and jumped over another fence. And so I was curious where that was, so I parked my car, walked through this parking lot, and looked over the fence, and kind of started barking and stuff. So that kind of keyed me in that was probably his house. So I went around the block to the front, and of course when I went around to the front, there he was, standing there in his smugness, I guess.
And it turned out to be the home of the defendant.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
So you went up to her at that time?
No, ma'am. Actually, what happened was I took some pictures. One of the things that I noticed was that a hole had actually been cut. Even though the dog could scale the fence, a hole had been cut or had been worn through by the dog, so that he had basically free reign of...
Let me see the picture.
Let me find that real quick. He had free reign of the property there, which I felt was kind of an interesting situation.
There is a hole there,
in the
but
side of the fence.
that's a whole other story. So the dog didn't have free reign.
You mean right near the house is where the hole
Yes,
is?
ma'am.
Right, this little spot right here?
Yes. And in one of the pictures that
Okay.
you've been given there, they've actually got a picture of him peeking back through the hole there.
I gotcha. Right over there. Little spot right over here. All right, well, there did come a time when you found out who the owner was.
Yeah, I tried to contact the defendant a little bit later in the day. Actually, I went home and contacted the Humane Society. They told me at that time that what I needed to do was I needed to get my dog to a veterinarian as soon as possible, because at that point in time I wasn't sure whether, a successful breeding had occurred or not.
Because your dog was in heat?
Yes, she was. They told me that I needed to get her to a vet right away to have an injection that would suspend any kind of pregnancy or anything, but I needed to get her in real soon. So I took her to the vet. The very next morning, or the very next afternoon, I went to the defendant's home. At that point in time, I had a vet bill for the actual injection, and then the vet required 3 subsequent visits to the vet to do blood work and some things to make sure that no infection or anything had occurred. I rang the doorbell. She came to the door. Her and her dog were inside. I talked to her for just a moment and told her what basically had occurred. She said, you know, that she didn't have any money, and that, you know, she wasn't sure if that was the case, and, you know, that that I was probably just trying to get money out of her or whatever.
And that's where it's at. Now, when did this occur, sir?
The day that the dog was at my house was July 17th. I talked to her on the 18th, which was a Saturday.
Okay. Well, knowing a little bit about the gestation period is 63 days, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you haven't had puppies?
No, my dog ended up not having puppies, which was a blessing.
And what were your vet bills as a result of this?
The vet bills that I have at this point in time come up to $346.35. The injections and the subsequent visits also, because of the breeding being real unsanitary conditions, my dog also contracted a urinary tract infection and some other things, and so she was kind of in bad shape for a while, and so she had to be put on a special diet for a month and some other things.
But your total vet bills are $346.35.
$346.35, yes, ma'am.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Baloney! That sounds stupid to you? Aren't you following me? Doesn't make sense, it's not true.
And later today,
You came in, you ordered a beer,
Yes.
took a swig, you felt something going in your throat.
I think I just swallowed a piece of glass.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Mark Snodgrass says Judith Peterson owes him for veterinarian bills after her dog mated with his pet Labrador. Judith says her dog didn't do it.
Now I'll hear you.
Well, most of what he said is true. He did come to my house. I keep my dog chained up in my front yard, not in my backyard. I don't let him have free rein. The hole isn't there so he can come in and out as he pleases. He is chained up and with a stake that goes into the ground 3 foot. When he's not chained up, he was in the house with me. He showed up at my door. I told him, no, I didn't know if it happened. I was on a limited income and I wasn't going to pay him. Well, 2 days later, he came over to my house and I was at work and he started questioning my neighbor. What did I do for a living? What was going on? You know, did I have kids? All this stuff. And that made me very concerned. I was wondering why this man over this, you know, he had stated too when he left, well, I'm going to take you to court and sue you for a lot more.
Ma'am, if I could real quick, just to clarify something real quick. One of the reasons that I continued to go to the defendant's house was that after this incident and I talked to her, she continued to let her dog run loose in the neighborhood.
That is not true at all.
As a matter of
Ms.
fact,
Peterson.
as a matter of fact, I have a list of every time that I called and talked to the Humane Society.
I'm not interested in your list. I'm not
There are
interested
2 other dogs in that neighborhood that look exactly like my dog.
Listen to me. Gentleman comes to your house and tells you that your dog got out of this chained area that you had the dog in, and this is what occurred. To me, a normal response would be, well, let me go out and see whether the chain is broken or anything else.
I did.
My dog was outside chained up. Now, when he came to your house, where was your dog?
He was in the house.
He had just come into the house.
No.
Baloney!
No, he was on the chain when I got home from work that day.
Listen
and
to
I
me.
let him in the house.
Oh,
That's
Ms.
where
Peterson,
I
I
keep him.
don't believe you. I don't believe you. I don't believe that this man, who was very, very careful about getting into his car and following the dog, and the dog, who you said, well, there were lots of dogs that looked like my dog.
Not lots, too.
So there were 2 other dogs, and one of those 2 other dogs left their property, came to his property, did this dastardly deed, and then went home to their property, and he mistakenly saw your dog that was in the house, according to you, in the house.
When
And
he came to my house,
he says,
was.
So he was clairvoyant, because he said, well, that looks like a house that probably has a dog in it that looks just like the dog that was outside fornicating with my dog. That sounds stupid to you? Give me a break. You didn't take good care of your dog and it was running around the neighborhood.
That's not true.
Of course it was true. Aren't you following me? Didn't you understand me? How could he know that a dog that looked just like the dog that was with his dog in the backyard happened to live in your house if the dog was in your house? It doesn't make sense. It's not true. You owe him $346.35. Pay him.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
The defendant had a responsibility to pay for what her dog did.
He still continues to come over to my house and call the dog catcher, even though my dog doesn't live there anymore. He's a jerk.
And now the next case.
Parties on Popovich versus McCauley. Step forward, please.
36-year-old silversmith Frank Popovich says bar owner Corey McCall owes him for medical bills after he swallowed glass from a broken beer bottle. Corey says he found the bottle and the broken glass, so Frank couldn't have swallowed it.
You, sir, own a bar of some sort, is that right?
Yes, I do.
And you were patron in that bar.
Yes.
According to your complaint, sir, you came in, you ordered a beer.
Yes.
And then instead of having the beer put in a glass, which would have been the genteel thing to do, you took a swig, you felt something going in your throat, you looked down at the glass and at the beer bottle, and what did you see?
I saw that there was a piece missing off the lip of the glass, or off the lip of the bottle, and Josh and another friend of mine, they saw that I was having some problem or something was wrong, and I said, yeah, I think I just swallowed a piece of glass. And they took a look at the bottle and they went, whoa, you know, and they called the bartender over and I said, look, you know, the beer bottle is broken, I think I swallowed a piece of glass. The bartender took the bottle and she replaced it with a new one.
Did you finish the second one?
I didn't finish it.
And
I was drinking it, and I still felt something in the back of my throat. And I was debating whether to go to the hospital right then, or whether I should wait a little bit just to see, because I wasn't quite sure. And in the meantime, all of a sudden, I just had this sensation. I went into the bathroom. I began to gag.
Shh, sir, stop playing with things.
I began to gag. I was just kind of dry heaving, you know, and I went, oh, this isn't, there's something there.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
It's still rough. I'm gonna sue myself. You injured the judge.
Closed captioning, sponsored in part by Real Cases, Real People, Judge Judy. Frank Popovich wants bar owner Corey McCall to pay his medical expenses after he was served a beer in a broken bottle.
What kind of surgery did you have, sir?
They put me under and they basically just scraped the inside of my throat.
Okay, go.
Okay, Your Honor. Well, Mr. Popovich swallowed something that night, but it was not glass. After my bartender took the bottle from him, she kept the bottle, put it in the office, and because he hadn't left the bar till about midnight that night, it seemed fishy to me. So the next morning, I came back into the bar, opened up the bottle cap receptacle, and found the original bottle cap with the chunk of glass missing, stuck to the top of the glass cap. And it fits the bottle perfectly.
All right, so let me take a look at the bottle and the bottle cap that you have.
Now, there was a tiny piece of glass that is missing from there. He says
Just a
that...
second. Shh. I'd love to play Sherlock Holmes.
There's glass stuck to the tape, too, as well.
I see it. Well, I certainly see Mr. Popovich. What he's talking about when he says he found a piece of glass in this bottle cap,
Yes.
which was very smart of you to do, sir.
Thank you.
To go around and see if you could find the culprit cap. However, as with all things, if you were to take a magnifying glass and look at this, you will see, because you can feel it if you put your nail over it, that even if you put this piece snugly on top, it's still rough. I find one spot where I can fit my nail in it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, there's also a piece of glass stuck to the inside tape, though, too.
Yeah, well, that may be. I find one spot where I can actually stick my
That's
nail
about
in
the
it on
size
one
of the piece.
side.
Because it broke off perfectly, Your Honor. The pieces were embedded in the cap perfectly when I found it the next morning because it was undisturbed.
Sir, listen to me. When you break something, it may look like a perfect break. I can put my finger across here and feel several areas where, I'm gonna sue myself. I got a piece of glass in my finger. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
All right.
Little tiny, I did. Little tiny slivers that sliver off even if it seems to be a clear break.
Right.
Right? So, and you can tell that because you injured the judge with your cap, trying to make my point. You have an absolute liability, sir, with regard to this. Absolute. No issue. Your bartender should have taken a look to see that she was serving a bottle that wasn't broken. I mean, you think that this man subjected himself to throat surgery, to having somebody scrape down his throat because he was fooling around? Because he was trying to sue you? It's ridiculous. I mean, they stuck tubes down his throat. You know how uncomfortable that is?
And up
If he
my
was
nose.
just, and down his nose, if he was just fooling around trying to make a lawsuit, and if he was trying to make a lawsuit, he would have wanted a lot more than just his medical bills paid.
Then why did he continue to drink at the bar if he thought he had swallowed something after we asked him to leave? To go seek medical attention?
Who knows? You know, sometimes you do it and you feel, you say, maybe I'm imagining things. I really wonder if I swallowed anything. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but I do feel something scratchy back here. Maybe it's something, maybe it isn't. I don't want to go to the emergency room. It's an unpleasant thing to go for an emergency room, you know. It's almost as unpleasant as somebody sticking a tube down your nose as somebody sticking a tube up your behind. You know, neither thing is very pleasant, right? So you try to put that sort of thing off, right? I can tell you that. It's not a nice thing to do.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Want justice? Call 1-888-800-JUDY.
He's suing you for $4,100. That's a bargain. Surgery alone, having that kind of surgery alone, is really unpleasant. How do you open this? Who's the bartender? How do you open it? You open it one of those things that's on the bar and you go, boom.
No, it's just a little receptacle thing. You just put in and
You
open
go like
it.
that.
Yeah, just put it in.
No,
open it
she
up.
said she slammed it down. She said she put it in and she slammed it down.
That's what I've usually seen in the
No.
movies, you know. They go, ching.
No, and I did not say that to him at any time.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,100, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Out the back door to your right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy,
I have a piece of glass in my throat. It's bothering me. I lay awake at night with the sensation of something in my throat, and I want it out.
When an individual thinks that he swallowed a chunk of glass the size that was missing from the bottle, common sense would be to go have it checked out. Instead, he chose to sit there and drink more for the next 3 hours.
I really don't drink. And for him to say that I was there for 3 hours drinking, I mean, his story is completely wrong.
Tamara Rhodes is suing her ex-husband, aerospace administrator James Rhodes, 42, for legal fees incurred trying to collect her child's medical bills. He says the child is not his.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 255 on the calendar in the matter of Rhodes versus Rhodes.
Thanks.
Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Let me see if I understand this lawsuit, Mrs. Rhodes. The defendant had been your husband,
Yes, ma'am.
and you are now divorced.
Yes.
Is this your present husband?
Yes, ma'am.
Why don't you have a seat, sir? According to your complaint, while you were married to the defendant, you became pregnant with your current husband's child. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Your child that was born required a great deal of medical attention in the first 3 months of life.
Yes, ma'am.
The defendant, according to your complaint, refused to pursue insurance claims for the medical bills for that child,
Yes.
the child that wasn't his,
Yes.
forcing you to go out and get a lawyer to pursue the insurance company for reimbursement.
Yes.
So you are suing your former husband for the legal fees that you incurred
Yes.
to get his insurance company to pay for your child.
Yes.
Your Honor, may I clarify?
Sure. Why don't you step up here?
Yeah.
You clarify it, and then you tell me why you didn't pay for your own child's insurance.
Very well. She was a dependent under Mr. Rhodes' insurance.
Yes.
Okay, under the fact of the matter is when the child was born, she was still covered under his insurance. And
She was.
She had it was a requirement by the divorce stipulation that she would be.
By what stipulation?
The divorce stipulation.
Yes.
Okay, a legal document here that he would maintain her insurance
Let me see it.
and also.
Just a second. Just a second. Let me look at it. Absolutely right. This says that the respondent, that's you,
Yes.
shall continue to cover petitioner, that's you, under his health insurance
That's correct.
available through his employer.
That's correct.
Did you continue to cover her?
Yes, I did.
So what's your complaint with regard to him?
Okay, when the child was born, she was still covered under his insurance because she was still married to him legally. I could not even put her under my insurance as a married woman to someone else. I could do it as my employer will allow me to do it as a domestic partner once she's divorced. Therefore, when the child was born, under his insurance coverage, she's automatically covered for 30 days. And I have a book that indicates that coverage.
That sounds right to me.
Okay,
So the child is automatically covered for 30 days.
The child went into ICU immediately after birth due to a variety of medical problems. What happened is that once the bill started coming in, his insurance carrier refused to pay them for whatever reason.
Right.
We went through great lengths. We called him. I even personally talked to him on the phone, said that I was Mr. Rhodes, and asked him, well, what can I do? And they said, well, you have to submit an appeal. And that has to be done in writing, and it has to be signed by the member, which was Mr. Rhodes. Now, we called him and talked to him initially and asked him if he would do that. And initially, he seemed like he would be interested in doing that. We set up a meeting and met with him and his significant other, and at that meeting, basically everything came apart. The parties parted ways, and basically shortly after, our phone was call blocked to his residence, so she could not call him.
What's your last name?
Payetta.
Mr. Payetta, the insurance company declined to pay for the child for the first 30 days.
At that time, yes.
And what you're complaining about is that Mr. Rhodes here, you don't have to say anything yet, Mr. Rhodes. Mr. Rhodes here said, I'm not filing any appeals with the insurance company.
That's correct.
And because he said he would not file appeals with the insurance company, you were forced to hire a lawyer.
That's correct.
And the lawyer was able to get the insurance company to pay up.
The majority of the claims. There are still some outstanding.
But the insurance company agreed that they had made a mistake.
That's correct.
And that they should have paid.
That's correct.
Well, I suggest you sue the insurance company
That was a possibility. We talked to the attorney. He said that the chances of that would be very unlikely.
Well, the chances of you being successful against Mr. Rhodes are even less likely, sir. He did what was required of him pursuant to this judgment of divorce. Oh, yes.
Your Honor, it says that he was supposed to assist in the submission of the claims.
They said he had the right to appeal. They wouldn't even listen to me.
Just a second. It says that the respondent shall continue to cover the petitioner under his health insurance available through his employer until she is no longer eligible as his spouse and cooperate in the submission and payment of claims and reimbursements.
That's correct.
That's what it says. Now, you submitted the claims.
No, what happens is the hospital submits the claims. They come back denied, and then the hospital sends us a bill and says you have to pay it. Okay, so we called the insurance company.
Just a second. You said it was denied. I didn't hear the reason that it was denied. You have that from your insurance, from the insurance company, as to the reason it was denied?
They said it because it wasn't his daughter.
It didn't say because he hadn't signed the claim forms.
That's correct.
Right. So he did not do anything.
Your
Just
Honor,
a minute.
we asked him to assist us with submitting the appeals. I even offered to write the letter if he would sign it.
I understand.
The insurance company would not.
Is he trying to talk over me?
Seems like.
I got to write down, sir. I got to write down. I know exactly what you're saying to me. You are saying that the bills were submitted pursuant to this, did not require his signature for it to be submitted because the hospital submits them.
That's correct.
They were disclaiming because the insurance company said since this child was not his, they were therefore not responsible because she was the dependent. That's according to you.
That was their initial story.
Whatever their story was.
Well, their book, the book that they say it's a general services agreement book, which we were able to get them to send us, states that the child is covered for the first 30 days.
So you sued them.
So what we did is I asked them, well, how do I resolve this during a phone call? And they said, well, what you have to do is submit a claim. Actually, they call it in here a grievance procedure. If you're dissatisfied with their response.
Their response, you file a grievance procedure.
Well, grievance procedure. That grievance procedure has to come from the member.
And he didn't want to do that.
That's correct.
Just a second. He didn't want to do that. I don't blame him.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
The judgment of divorce provides that he shall cooperate in the submission of claims.
Which he did not do.
You are interrupting me, which is really ticking me off.
And later today.
So you're sitting in your house and all of a sudden you hear crash.
You know, I figured people kept their golf balls on the golf course.
The good golfers do.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Tamara Rhodes wants her ex-husband, James Rhodes, to pay her attorney bill for trying to collect her child's medical bills.
Let me see the letter from the lawyer.
By... which one is it?
How are you, Mr. Rhodes?
I'm fine. How are you?
Here it is, this one right here. Your Honor, the issue...
Shh, let me read. I know what the issue is. I'm really smart. Well, this certainly isn't a very strong letter that your attorney wrote to them. He says, additionally, please find a copy of my client's February 24th and March 24th billing statements from this office indicating attorney's fees expended in order to resolve the payment of these claims with your company. I am therefore requesting that you check into the possibility of reimbursement of these fees from your company.
Your Honor?
Look into the possibility of paying? No. You sue him. You sue him. Now.
I acknowledge what you're saying as far as I do believe, truthfully, that the insurance company has a certain culpability towards this whole situation. In fact, maybe a greater percentage. But it was an agreement in Tamara's and Mr. Rhodes' divorce decree that he was to assist her. By the fact that he did not assist her, we had to employ the attorney and incur fees in order to resolve this matter. That is why we feel that Mr. Rhodes is subject to paying some of these attorney fees.
So I'll give it to you one more time, sir. I've read the judgment of divorce. The judgment of divorce provides that he shall cooperate in the submission of claims.
Which he did not do.
You are interrupting me, which is really ticking me off.
Sorry, Your Honor.
No. He did not have to do it in this case because the hospital itself submitted the claims on behalf of your now wife and behalf of your child. The judge's direction pursuant to the judgment of divorce did not say anything about and pursuing all necessary appeals if insurance is declined. Didn't say anything about that. It said submission of claims. He chose not to be involved with the appellate process of the insurance company. The truth of the matter is it was the insurance company that was culpable, and your lawyer or you are free to sue the insurance company for the costs that you incurred in seeing to it that a right decision was ultimately made. Your lawsuit's dismissed, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Out the back door to your right, please.
Oh, I just hope that Tammy and Jack move on with their own life and take on their own responsibilities instead of trying to make me pay for it.
I was looking after my daughter, someone really sick.
I guess we just have to live with it.
Someday we'd like to have our own baby, and our insurance will pay for that.
And now the next case.
Parties on Harper versus Clark. Step forward, please.
Jacqueline Harper claims golfer Ted Clark hit a ball through her window. Ted says it wasn't his ball.
It always amazes me, Mr. Clark, that men can't remember birthdays, they can't remember anniversaries, they can't remember very important moments in their life, but they remember what kind of golf ball they play with. Strange. Anyway, lawsuit is about a golf ball and whose golf ball it was that broke your window, right?
Right.
So you live on a golf course.
That's right.
Why?
I've asked myself that same question too. I've never lived on a golf course before this.
I always wondered why people would live on a golf course. Seems to me you're outside, want to be puttering in the backyard, sitting by your pool and you're, dodging golf balls.
That's right. I was not aware that, I figured people kept their golf balls on the golf course.
The good golfers do.
Which was
but there are a lot of duffers out there.
Assumption on my part.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're sitting in your house and all of a sudden you hear crash. Was this the first crash that you heard? Have you ever had a golf ball break a window or anything else in the past?
I've had numerous windows broken by golf balls.
I'd think about a resale if I were you. Don't wait until one of these golf balls doesn't do a window, but does your head.
Does my head, exactly.
Okay. And you, Mr. Clark, were playing with a foursome?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you hear?
What I heard was I heard the ball hit in Mrs. Harper's roof.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I heard one bang. I heard a window.
Doesn't make sense, right?
What makes some sense is the window could have been broken previously.
Closed captioning, sponsored in part by Real Cases, Real People, Judge Judy. Jacqueline Harper claims golfer Ted Clark hit a ball through her window. Ted says it wasn't his ball.
So what did you do?
Well, as we went down the fairway, Mrs. Harper came out of her backyard and said that somebody just broke a window in the front of her house. So I said, that must have been me because my ball did hit your roof. So I gave her my name and telephone number and said I would take care of paying for a window to have it replaced, and I would pay for it. So I went back down, and when I mentioned this to my golfing partners, we all reflected on it and thought we couldn't understand how it could break a window in the front of her house. So I left my group and went up to Mrs. Harper's house, rang her doorbell, and she came out, and I asked if she'd found the golf ball. And she said no, she hadn't looked for it. So at that point, I said, well, could I come into your yard and could we find the ball? I said, I'm playing a Top Flight Arrow 3. I have one here that was left in the box from that day. So I went into her yard and we found a ball at the bottom of her flower bed right below the window. It wasn't my ball, and we found another one about another 10 feet away. So I left and I went back and I wrote her a letter that day and basically said, if you find my golf ball, I'll be happy to pay for the window. And about 4 or 5 days went by, then I got a summons to small claims court. And subsequently, I got a bill from Mrs. Harper, and she said on the bill that she'd found the ball. So at that point, I went over to her house with a check for, I think it was about $108 the cost of the window. And I told her again I was playing a Top Flight Arrow 3. And she said, well, this is a Top Flight XL1. And I said, well, Mrs. Harper, that's not my ball. And she basically said, well, I knew you were going to do this to me. And she went back in her house, and here we are.
You were in the house that day?
Yes, I was.
How many bangs did you hear on your house?
I heard one bang. I heard a window.
You play golf there all the time?
Yes, I do.
See anybody else there hitting a ball at the precise moment you did?
Oh, no, not at all.
So let's talk about common sense. It just doesn't make sense, sir, that at the precise moment that you hit a ball, you hear it hit her house, that another person from wherever hits a ball, and at the precise moment it hits her house and breaks her window, at the precise moment, at the moment that your ball, according to you, hit her roof. Doesn't make sense, right?
No, that doesn't make sense. The ball and the flight of the ball, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The flight of that ball could have gotten to a window in the front of her house. What makes some sense is the window could have been broken previously.
Mr. Clark, are you suggesting that this lady who's standing here had a broken window in her house, waited until you happened to hit the roof of her house and said, aha, I got a sucker to pay for the window? Does that sound logical? Look at her, Mr. Clark. What time of the day did this happen, Miss Harper?
It happened at 10:45 in the morning.
When you woke up in the morning, was your window intact?
Yes, the window was intact and had been intact.
Okay. And the window was broken moments before Mr. Clark came up to your house.
Right. I was in the back end of the house and I heard this glass sound breaking. So I went around the house looking to see what broke. By that time, they were down behind the back of the house in their golf carts. So I went out in the back and I said, one of you fellas broke one of my windows.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Clark comes running up the little back hill there and he says, I did it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Want justice? Call 1-888-800-JUDY.
Mr. Clark, she's suing you for $109.48, which you would agree is the cost of replacing that window. She'll
Correct.
show you a bill. You have a bill?
I have a bill.
Show
I
it to
don't
Mr.
deny that
Clark.
whatsoever.
Here.
Show it to Mr. Clark.
I have a letter that I wrote to him.
I don't need a
right
letter.
I have a letter that he
I would
wrote
just also
to me.
add
don't
that
need a letter.
the $109 wouldn't even come out of my own pocket. My homeowner's policy would cover the cost of the window. There's no deductible on damage done
Great.
to other property.
So
this has nothing to do with
money.
what the cost of the window was.
Okay.
That's correct.
So what I'm saying to you is, in order for me to buy your scenario, sir, I have to believe that this lady was laying in wait for just somebody to come and say, I hit your roof, and she'd say, now I got somebody to pay for the window, because I'm sure she has homeowner's insurance too.
Right.
All right? It doesn't sound right. She doesn't look like that kind of
Can I
lady,
just add
although
to
she
that?
stays on a golf course, lives on a golf course, despite the fact that she's
Can I add one other thing?
ducking them all the time. Yes.
Mrs. Harper indicated she was home all morning. That may very well be the case, but I play out there every Saturday morning, and many Saturday mornings I see Mrs. Harper out at that time walking her dog. So whether she was home that Saturday and the dog didn't get to walk, I don't know. But saw her last Saturday. I also saw her the Saturday before around that time walking the dogs.
Listen to me. Listen to me. You hit her house with a golf ball.
Yes.
You acknowledge that.
Yes.
He acknowledges it in writing.
Miss Harper,
this
you're
letter.
winning. Be quiet. Pay the $2. Judgment in this case is for the plaintiff for $109.48. That's
Parties
all.
are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy, says her friend, self-employed artist George Baker, 33, owes her for a phone bill. George says he paid it.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 286 on the calendar in the matter of Hobbs versus Baker. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat, please.
Miss Hobbs, according to your papers, you had a boyfriend.
Tyson.
What?
Tyson.
Tyson. Is this Tyson?
Yes, it is.
Not your boyfriend any longer.
No.
But you were living together, and you both wanted a phone. You put the phone in your name.
Yes.
For whatever reason. Mr. Baker was a friend.
Yes, he was.
Who, according to your complaint, was going through some difficult times and asked if he could use the phone occasionally.
Yes, he did.
Okay, so there came a point when you and Tyson separated.
Yes.
And the only thing that you left behind was the phone that was in your name?
Yes.
And you were perfectly comfortable that Tyson was going to pay the bill?
Yes, Tyson and I were very good friends, and I had no problem with leaving the phone there.
And while Mr. Baker was living with Mr. Tyson, Mr. Baker
I wasn't living with him.
He was staying with him
Staying with him.
periodically.
One day out of a week, every 2 months.
Whatever. While you were there, you used the phone.
That's correct. You don't have to raise your voice at me.
Okay, so you
I
used
can
the
hear pretty
phone.
well.
And you used the phone to make long-distance phone calls.
Yeah, I've made a few.
And your long-distance phone bill was how much?
Originally, we thought it was $350. Since we've gotten more bills and added it up, it's come to $419 and some odd cents.
Okay.
Now.
Can I see that?
Sure.
Of course you can.
You have the bills?
Yes, I do.
Cool.
Okay. Before you look at those, Mr. Baker, because I'm going to give you time to go over those bills, you indicated, Ms. Hobbs, that when you started to get these bills, you contacted Mr. Baker.
Yes, I did.
And what were the conversations that you had with him?
At first, he had told us that he was using a calling card. Then he told me that there was no problem. He was going to send his brother-in-law down to pay for it by the time that it was due, and none of these events ever occurred.
Now, Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Did you ever have a conversation with Ms. Hobbs indicating that you were using a calling card to make these telephone
No, I
calls?
didn't. I had a conversation with Tyson that I had used a calling card a few times, and then I told him that instead of using the calling card and receiving the extra charges because he was on Quest or something like that, and I figured my calling card would be more, that I would just call directly and then pay him when they came in.
Okay. So you did have an agreement with Tyson to pay the bills as they came in. Did you, in fact, pay the bills when they came in?
The bills that I felt necessary to pay, yes. Looking at these, I have no idea who some of these phone numbers are.
George has not made one payment to the phone company
Well, the
at all.
first time a payment came in from Tyson, or the phone bill came in, Tyson came to me. This was, first time I believe was in April. If I recall, he came to me and said, your phone bill is $74, something like that. I gave him the money for $74.
Is that correct?
Yes, but that's not what this bill is about.
Okay. That was back in April, so we gave you $74. Stand up here, Tyson. Did you continue to allow him to use the phone?
Yes.
Over the period of months, I've loaned money to him. He's paid back. I've loaned money. He's paid back. I believe it was January or February. I loaned Michelle $160 to get her car fixed, which I've never seen back.
That is untrue. He has never given me any money to fix my car. My car is not in need of fixing. My car is a '92 Saturn.
Mr. Baker.
Yeah.
You were aware of the fact that the phone bill on the phone was in the name of Miss Hobbs.
Yes, I was, but I was also aware that it was in his house to which she was not a resident of.
Okay, but you understood that it was... I'm asking you these questions, sir, and there's a reason for my asking you these questions.
Okay.
Okay. Now I'm going to get to your defense, because this is not a difficult case, because your defense is most telling. Your defense is that he owed you money.
Correct.
And because
And she owed me money.
She says she doesn't owe you any money.
Well, it's all about who's telling the truth anyway, but
Right.
she owed me $160 for a car.
Mr. Baker, did you pay her directly this $160, or did you give it
I gave it to her directly,
in cash?
in cash, like I normally do.
Excuse me?
When I loan people money, I give it to them in cash.
That's
When I
nice.
get a handshake, that's good enough for me.
Well, you didn't have a handshake with Ms. Hobbs with regard to making this bill even. You may have had a handshake with Tyson.
But it was
here
in
to
his
have-
house.
I don't care whether it
And
was
he
in
was
his
the one
house. I don't
using
care if
it.
it was in his bedroom. I don't care if it was in his potty. You didn't have an arrangement with her.
She
You
had
had
an
an
arrangement
arrangement
with
with
him.
him. No.
She had an arrangement with him to pay the bill, which means anybody that uses the phone is given permission by him, so he's held liable for it. I can make the agreement with him. I don't have to make it to her. It's not
Look
even her
over the bills.
residence.
Look over the bills.
I'm looking over the bills.
Good. Please look over
Can
the
I
bills now.
say
No.
one?
I'm going to be quiet. I don't want to confuse Mr. Baker. I want him
Oh,
to
I
be
don't
able to
get
look over the
confused.
bills.
I can agree with the phone calls to Georgia, Salinas, and Phoenix, Arizona, and Mesa, Arizona.
Tempe.
Yeah, Tempe would be one, but the ones to Pleasanton, I can't agree that all those were mine because both of us know that person in Pleasanton, and neither one of us could have been caller, and I don't have exact times of when I was there.
Most of the calls that I highlighted
Can
on
I
this
see
bill.
that, please?
But-
Go ahead now.
Okay.
He says that you both know this one
Right.
person.
On this bill, the only calls that I highlighted for him were the ones that were made between calls that he had made long distance. And some of those calls we made together, so I didn't highlight all of them and try to be fair, but like I can't recall every single one I made or every single one he made. So I did my best to make it even and only charge or highlight the calls that he made between long distance calls that I know were his.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
He told me he was going to pay it. He would go down to a payment center and pay it.
No.
And then told us he paid it through his brother-in-law. Then he said that, oh, well, it got applied to the wrong phone number. It was one digit off. I'll call and have it taken care of.
And later today,
So you're a psychic.
Among other things, I believe we all are psychics. It's whether we choose to use it or not.
So how come you couldn't tell that she was ready to scam you?
Because it would be unethical to read somebody without their permission.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Michelle Hobbs says friend George Baker owes her for a phone that was turned off. George says her fiancé owes him money.
Evidently, you were a better friend to this gentleman than was Miss Hobbs.
Right.
Is that right?
Yes, very much.
Well, when you started to get these bills that he hadn't paid, what conversations did you have with him?
He originally said that he was going to use a calling card, and then these calls started to show up, and he said, well, I stopped using the card because it's cheaper and I'll pay you for them. The first bill came in at $411.68. I went over it, $311 was his, and $98 and some change was mine, somewhere in that
When
ballpark.
you say you went over it, who did you go over it with?
I went through it myself and highlighted everything that wasn't my call, and I showed it to him. He said, show me the bill, I'll pay you what I owe you.
Now, what did he say he was going to do with the $311?
He told me he was going to pay it. He would go down to a payment center and pay it.
No.
And then he didn't pay it, and then he told us he paid it through his brother-in-law, and he had a receipt. We never saw the receipt. Then he said that, oh, well, it got applied to the wrong phone number. It was one digit off. I'll call and have it taken care of.
Who did he tell this to?
To me.
To
and
you?
to her.
And to me.
Okay, but he told this to you?
Yes.
And he was your friend,
Yes.
really?
But the things that he was saying at the time were plausible. It was a minor mistake from the phone company. It was his brother paid it, so there was a mistake on the number. It could happen. It's happened to me before. You know, you make a small mistake, you take care of it. But as it got farther and farther along, the bill became past due, and it went into collections. So now there's a mark on her credit against her because he kept dragging this out, telling us he was taking care of it and not doing it. And that's the only reason I'm upset, is because she trusted me to pay the bill and I trusted him to pay the bill. Other than that, I don't have much of a problem. But she needs to pay a $300 deposit on top of the bill to get a phone now. And I don't think that was exactly fair.
Mr. Baker, where were you living at the time that you were using his phone?
With Jessica, who was my wife.
Okay. And why weren't you using your phone?
Because sometimes I was over at his house and sometimes I wasn't getting along with Jessica, and I come over and stay with him, and I use his phone, and I called friends of mine in Phoenix because I do business and stuff in and out of there, and we just got along. But I've loaned money to him all throughout.
I'm not interested in you loaning. If you have loans, then you take care of it a certain way.
Well, you take care of loans. It's basically if you owe me and I owe you, everything cancels out pretty much.
Well, that may
And that's
be.
what we agreed on the handshake.
No,
basically.
Sir, I said
You
to
don't
you once
believe that,
before.
huh?
No, I don't. A, I don't believe it, and B, you knew very well that the money that was owed on her credit, and therefore, even if I were to believe you, even if I believe you, which I don't, it had nothing. She was not party to that agreement.
No, it doesn't have to be a party. He becomes her attorney, in fact, if she lets him put a place in her house.
Can I say something
Judgment
here?
in this case is for the plaintiff, and the amount requested in the original lawsuit, which is $350. Get a life, sir.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Out the back door to your right, please.
My degree is in criminal law and justice.
He's trying to make me look like I'm some naive thing that doesn't know what's going on. In his big legal background, he knows what's going on.
And I'm just glad it was handled here, not in the federal court, so it doesn't go on my record. Other than that, people can bite me, basically.
And now the next case.
All parties on Greco versus Reese. Step forward, please.
Psychic Joyce Greco claims chromatologist Donna Reese owes her for a failed aura photography business.
Ms. Greco, I've read your papers, and what I gather is that you invested $1,000 to go into a joint business venture with the defendant, who also put up $1,000. And your papers suggest that you believe she scammed you out of your $1,000. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me what kind of a business venture this was.
This was Aura Photography.
You said Aura Photography. Explain that to me.
Aura Photography photographs the energy around your body. And my job was to interpret the picture, and I do it psychically.
So you're a psychic?
Among other things, I believe we all are psychics. It's whether we choose to use it or not.
So how come you couldn't tell that she was ready to scam you?
Because it would be unethical to read somebody without their permission. And I don't read for myself. I'm paid to read, and I read.
So you're paid to read, but you couldn't do it for yourself?
I don't choose to go through life knowing what's going to happen. And
well, that was a mistake. It may have cost you $1,000.
It may,
okay.
However.
So tell me about this photography first. How does the photography portion, that's your portion of it, the photography, is that right?
Well, I have a company that manufactures those cameras. It was not part of this venture.
I understand that. Your company manufactures cameras that take pictures of people's...
Of an image of the aura, yes.
What does that look like?
It's a Polaroid picture. It's a double exposure, and then you see the colors around the individual. And we have colorists that interpret it. Occasionally, I work with psychics.
How did you meet each other?
I went to have my picture taken at a psychic fair, and she liked my energy so well, she packed up her things before the fair was over, and she came with me and rented a place in my business where I was working. I do massage therapy and hypnotism.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
I assume you're talking about these pictures, the ones with all this funny lights.
Yes.
Ones that look like pictures that I would take, you know, all double exposed and not lit well.
Closed captioning, sponsored in part by Real Cases, Real People, Judge Judy. Psychic Joyce Greco claims chromatologist Donna Reese owes her for a failed aura photography business.
So you go to a psychic fair and you take her picture, and you see her aura. And it's your job, after she takes the picture, to look at it and to
interpret what's going on in people's lives, and if they have health issues that we can help them with. And there's a lot of positive things that come through it. We don't do death, doom, or...
I'm dying to see one of the pictures. I assume you're talking about these pictures, the ones with all this funny lights.
Yes.
Ones that look like pictures that I would take, you know, all double exposed and not lit well. So tell me about the business venture. How did that come about?
Well, the business venture was I was doing readings for her, and she kept complaining about the camera. The camera was so expensive, and I wasn't putting up any money because she wanted to work with me, and I wanted to work with her. So I really believed in the camera, and I felt that, okay, if she's so concerned, I'll leave $1,000 as a bond if I did any damage to the camera, because Harriet and I would go out.
You were using her camera?
Yes.
To do your business?
Occasionally. Alone occasionally. Most of the time it was with her.
So how did this $1,000 come about? As a bond?
Yes. She kept complaining that if anything happened to the camera, she had nothing, that everybody else puts up money, that I don't put up money. And so in good faith, I left her the money. And if she needed to use it for deposits of future events, then she could. But we always paid our expenses right out of that day.
If there was, say, a $100 registration fee for the event or a booth fee, that you paid?
Yeah.
How did you pay it? You each put up half?
We paid it out. We would make money, and we paid it out of our expenses. Right then and there.
You mean you paid it out of your profits?
I paid it out of Aura Enterprises.
Just a second. Now I turn to you. You just said you paid it out of Aura Enterprises. Right. You paid the expenses out of Aura Enterprises. Well, why did you do that?
She put $1,000 into Aura Enterprises, and I put $1,000 in. I paid for everything up front, and then at the end, I took the expenses off the top, put it back in the company, which was putting it back in, and then I split the profits. Joy continued to work with me after we defunct Aura Enterprises, my ex-business partner and she worked with Colorvision, so there was more monies that was received as well.
But you had another partner in Aura Enterprises, you just said.
Correct.
Nothing that you said in your opening statement suggested to me that she invested $1,000 in Aura Enterprises. What you said was, we entered into a joint venture.
Correct.
Well, why did you take her money, her $1,000, and put it in Aura Enterprises?
I didn't have enough money in Aura Enterprises to go do the shows that she wanted to do.
Just a second. No. You took her money.
Correct.
And invested it in a business that was already ongoing that had another partner.
Correct.
At least one other partner. Now, that wasn't what your arrangement was, either according to her or according to you. You decided what to do with her money. I mean, if you're entering into a joint venture with somebody, then you say, I'm taking this money, and instead of Aura Enterprises, it's going to be Carol Enterprises.
Okay.
The two of us, so that we know exactly what's going on. Because if you had a partner, did you know her other partner in Aura Enterprises?
Can I point?
No, just tell me.
Yes, a very sweet lady.
All right, so you knew her partner.
Yes, and she was there when I left the money in. I did not write a check.
What difference does it make? She's not denying that she gave her the $1,000. Pay attention.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. Want justice? Call 1-888-800-JUDY.
But there was no understanding that this money would go into an ongoing operation called Aura Enterprises. You were entering into a joint venture. That would make things very easy to follow. That would make the money trail very easy to follow. You open up a bank account, Carol Enterprises, and you put all the money in there, and so you could take the bank account and you could take a bank statement and say, this is what we spent, this is what we brought in, and this is your share, and this is my share. That's simple. Instead, you commingled it. Well, that wasn't smart. That's not a business. And then once you commingled it, you said to her, you have no money left. And if you go to fairs and you make profits, and there were, according to you, profits, right? From each show that you did. So if there were profits from each show that you did, she should still have her original investment of $1,000. So here's what we have. We have $1,000 invested in what is clearly a joint venture, not involving any other business, but you engaged in a business, and the business, in fact, was profitable, which means you made money each time you went to a show, over and above the expenses. That's what you say, and you don't seem to deny that. If that is true, then her original $1,000 investment should be intact. The fact that Aura went out of business has nothing to do with that. Judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
I don't feel that it was a personal loan. It was a loan to the company, and the company closed. And that was on the advice of my accountant as well.
I thought the judge looked great. I needed the money. And the fact that I had her sign the agreement with her name, not Aura Enterprises, because it was between her and I. And it, it breaks my heart.
Son Michael Long are suing Rosemary's sister, Patricia Hallaby, over leasing a computer from Michael. Patricia is countersuing for the bill she had to pay.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 292 on the calendar in the matter of Hoffman Long versus Hallaby. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Miss Hoffman.
Yes.
This is your sister.
That's correct.
And you're suing your sister about something that has to do with a computer.
That's right.
A computer that was leased for you or for your son. You're the son?
Right. Correct.
By your sister. Because
Exactly.
she had some sort of an in with this computer company?
It's just at the time, my sister was not creditworthy and her son didn't have a job. He was unemployed.
But do you have some sort of a working relationship with this computer company, or you work with a company that...
Oh, no, Judge. My sister did all the legwork and tried to see which was the best suitable computer she could lease.
Okay. You had nothing to do with this, is that right?
I did. Actually, I approached her asking because I did need a computer for school for business. I wanted to prepare myself for the working world.
Your Honor, that's correct.
And I also painted her house, reupholstered. I did some menial labor for her. So, you know, I thought, hey, I need a computer. I wasn't creditworthy at the time, and I could pay for it. And so I said, look, Patricia, can you please sign this lease because you're creditworthy, and I'll pay on a monthly basis. She said, fine.
Did you speak to your sister about this, or did your son?
My son, Michael.
What I'm asking you is it was the arrangement that you would pay for this leased computer?
Right.
You, not your son?
Right.
Were you working at the time?
Yes.
And your son wasn't working?
Right, he was in the process of looking for...
Process. Your sister wasn't going to lease a computer on his process. She was leasing a computer because you were employed.
Right.
And you assured her that you would pay... That you would pay the bill. Right.
I did.
Okay.
I did not have any monetary agreements with her son.
I said that. You're not paying attention. You're not paying attention to what just transpired.
I just want to make that clear.
Pay attention. I've already established that.
Yes, Your Honor.
We have established thus far that you had an agreement with your sister.
Yes.
That she was going to pay the monthly installments on this computer.
Yes.
And because they either weren't paid on time or because they weren't posted on time, your credit was at risk.
Yes.
Perfect. So what did you do?
I approached my sister and asked her over the phone, what is it going to take for you to get caught up? That's when the negativity came about. She would not take my phone calls. She had a restraining order put on me so that I could...
Did you have a restraining order placed?
Yes.
Why?
She brought over 2 police officers from the Glendale department, and because we talked to them, my mother spoke to them, they suggested that we do it just to protect ourselves.
For what?
Because they were tired of her antics, they told us.
Your Honor, she had called several times saying that she was going to get her associates that she's gone into business with to come over and kick our ass. She demanded the computer back because she claims that we were not paying for it.
Okay.
When in fact we have proof that we have been paying for it.
Let me see the proof that you had that you were paying for it, the canceled checks.
I have I'm send money orders, and I have a copy for you. And I would send these payments overnight them. I would spend $10.75 extra so they can be overnight.
What day of the month are these things supposed to be paid?
I would send them at the end.
I didn't ask you when you would send them. I asked you what day of the month were these.
Okay.
Just a minute. Were you making these checks?
I was buying the money.
Were you?
I was putting some of the money in. As far as not being employed, I was employed. I was making money and I was sending money in.
It's not what I asked.
No, I wasn't.
Sit down.
Okay.
You were getting the money orders.
Either myself or my son.
What day of the month was this account supposed to be paid?
Okay, originally it was stated to be paid on the 15th, but Dell was, they had computer problems for 2 months. The last months of the year, 1997. We did not get any notice until the latter part of December. But by that time, I had already been sending my payments at the end of each month, and that's when I decided to keep it that way because all my other payments that I would make on a monthly basis were falling in that particular time. So I couldn't take money out from another area to pay them on the 15th because I already had done it on the end of the month, each month.
Well, I'm telling you this right now, none of your payments were made on the 15th of the month.
No,
none of your payments were made. Let me give you the dates. January 19th, February 25th, March 30th.
Right.
April 28th, you have May 30th. Then you have one for June 15th. So that one you paid on time. So all the other ones you didn't pay on time. Who's got the computer now?
Dell.
No,
Dell has it back.
Because my sister had a representative.
That was unclear in the papers where the computer is.
The representative which my sister Tricia spoke to, Ms. Bryan, demanded that we send the computer to them. And my son obliged by doing so.
You say they don't have it back?
Your Honor, the last time I spoke with my sister, she did not tell me the computer was back. When Dal had a three-way conversation with Ms. Hoffman and asked her to return the computer because it would ruin my credit, Ms. Hoffman said, I shipped it. They asked her, how did you ship it? Did you tell the leaser? No, I don't have to say anything.
That's not true.
Show me proof that you
That's
sent
not
this
true.
computer back to them, please.
She was aware of it.
Just a second. Okay. Well, I have something that was sent on and delivered on the 5th of September. And it was sent to Dell Computer, and it seems to be signed by somebody.
That's
At
new
Dell
knowledge
Computer.
to me, ma'am.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, you two sisters aren't talking to each other, so that's
Exactly.
very sad. But you did send it back, right?
Exactly.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Your lawsuit is crazy. You leased something, you got the service for the lease. The service for the lease was he got to use a computer for the 6 or 8 months that you had the computer.
And later today,
What kind of car was this?
It's a super stretch limousine.
How big is that?
It's 32 feet long. This car is white.
That's taller than I am.
Considerably.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Rosemary Hoffman is suing her sister, Patricia Hallaby, for reneging on a promise to lease a computer to Rosemary's son, Michael. Patricia says Rosemary owes her for not paying the lease on time.
Now, what I don't understand is you or your son actually used this computer for the months that you had it. So what are you suing her for?
I want the monies that I paid for because this was a verbal agreement between my sister and my son Michael that at the end of the lease we were to purchase the computer and it would be for my son to use it for his work.
You had a lease agreement that permitted you to have use of a very expensive piece of equipment for $141.75 a month.
Right.
You, in fact, used the computer for all the months that you had it. Through no fault of your sister's, you were late in the payments for at least the last 5 months that I saw based upon what you've shown me.
Right, because
Well,
I send them at the end of each month.
You can't send them at the end of each month. You have to send them when you're supposed to. Dell wanted it on the 15th. You got the service of this computer for the months that you had it, and you paid for it, $141.75. I am not ordering her to pay you all the money that you paid, because how is she going to take back the information that your son got from using the computer all those months? Your lawsuit is crazy. You leased something. You got the service for the lease. The service for the lease was he got to use a computer for the 6 or 8 months that you had the computer. Now, you have a counterclaim, and your counterclaim is for the cost of the lease. Now, she returned the computer.
Without my knowledge.
I don't care whether it was with your knowledge or without your knowledge. Have you gotten, since September 15th or September 20th, information from Dell Computers that they, in fact, are seeking more money from you? The answer is either yes or no.
Yes, it is, ma'am.
Let me see it. This says late payment 8/6/98. That's August.
That's...
Bird, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take from her the signed receipts from Dell. I'd like you to make Xerox copies of them. I'd like you to get the copies of them to Miss Hallaby so that she can communicate with Dell Computer, show them that they have, in fact, received this computer back.
Right.
Based upon the sworn testimony of her sister. If it is incorrect, Miss Hallaby, that she has returned the computer, and she has not, which I doubt because she wouldn't be so stupid to stand here and lie to me that she has, in fact, returned the computer if she didn't,
yes,
then you are free to come back to court, file your own complaint, because right now, the only evidence that I have is that the computer has, in fact, been returned. Do you understand?
I understand that
Good.
part.
That's all. You get nothing. You had the use of the computer, and so did he. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I didn't necessarily want to come today. The plaintiffs wanted X amount of dollars that I couldn't understand why they would want. So I'm glad we had it in this session, and I'm glad it's done and over with.
Her credit is not ruined. It's not at all ruined. It's just that she has a fanatic way of thinking that her credit, you know, that she lives on her credit.
And now the next case.
Parties on Lamberton versus Schultz. Step forward, please.
48-year-old part-time limo driver Lance Lamberton is suing limo owner Frank Schultz for not paying him. The defendant says Lance crashed his limousine and he owes him.
Mr. Lamberton, according to these papers, you worked for the defendant as a limousine driver. And over a 2-day period, about 6 months ago, 7 months ago?
March.
And you were not paid.
That's correct.
You were not paid because you assume that because you were in an accident on the second day of work, he withheld your salary.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Schultz, you can't do that.
Well, I'm sorry. I feel that he owes the money.
You feel as if he owes you money,
That's correct, Judge.
but you didn't file a counterclaim.
Yes, I have in Texas courts.
But you didn't file one here.
No, I haven't.
Now tell me about your defense, because it's clear he worked for you for those couple of days as an
Yes, it
independent
is.
contractor.
He had a job to drive some people to the Stars game down at Reunion Arena, and it was on a Sunday. And when he called during the day and he said he had an accident with my vehicle.
What kind of car was this?
It's a super stretch limousine.
How big is that?
It's 32 feet long, and this car was white.
That's taller than I am.
And I just happened to know that when I saw my car, it had a bunch of red paint across it. And I've been down to Reunion Arena a bunch of times, and I noticed that it also matches the poles at Reunion Arena because they're all over, which I have pictures of.
Your Honor, I'm not disputing the fact that that I did get into an accident. I don't think that's relevant, though, to the fact that I did work for him and I should get paid that day plus the day before.
While I agree with you, sir, that you're entitled to your pay, Mr. Schultz seems to indicate in his response that you were less than forthcoming with how this accident actually occurred when you spoke to him initially.
Mm-hmm.
Or to put it more bluntly, you lied with regard to how the car was damaged.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What he told me is he doesn't have any collision insurance because it's too expensive, and so therefore he was trying to get me to pay for the damages and made a number of harassing telephone calls, including to my wife.
Closed captioning, sponsored in part by Real Cases, Real People, Judge Judy. 48-year-old part-time limo driver Lance Lamberton is suing limo owner Frank Schultz for not paying him. The defendant says Lance crashed his limousine and he owes him.
What was the first story he told you with regard to the accident, Mr. Schultz?
He called me from the gas station about midway through the run, and he told me that some orange pickup truck hit and took off at a gas station, hit my car and took off.
Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes. When I heard the noise in the garage, when I was at the gas station, then I looked around and I saw the damage. So what happened is, when I was in Reunion Arena, when I thought I had jumped the curb, okay, I was not aware at that particular point in time that there was damage to the vehicle.
Let's take a look at it. So then you took it to the body shop, and the body shop said this is not how it happened. It happened by...
The guys have had 20, 30 years experience, and they said it was hit by a pole.
Mr. Lamberton, this is some hitting a pole or hitting a curb. You know, you said you thought you just hit a curb.
The vehicle is an extremely large vehicle, and an impact like that can happen, and you cannot recognize or realize that that amount of damage could have occurred.
Now, why, Mr. Schultz, didn't you, in any event, report this to your insurance?
Well, Your Honor, for one, I needed the car like yesterday, and it cost me over about $5,000 in lost wages while I sat in the body shop for 30 days. If I had to get my insurance, I would have had to wait for an adjuster, which would take 2 weeks. Plus, on these limousines, my insurance is very, very high. My deductible is over $1,500.
Do you have insurance, sir?
I called my insurance company to see if they would cover it, and there's an exclusionary clause which says that if I'm driving a vehicle for hire, that it will not cover me for that sort of damage. I had always assumed that Mr. Schultz had collision insurance and was covered and had his vehicles covered. What he told me is he doesn't have any collision insurance because it's too expensive, and so therefore he was trying to get me to pay for the damages and made a number of harassing telephone calls, including to my wife. He was making threatening, intimidating telephone calls to the point that my wife had to call the police to make a complaint.
What kind of phone calls, Ms. Lamberton?
Your Honor, he continued to call my home. And he had found out that my husband was not in town, and he threatened me that if I did not pay him the sum of $5,000, that my husband and I were going to be very, very, very sorry, and we were going to suffer. And so what I did is I went to the police department, got in my car, went there, and I filed a complaint against him, hoping that
Did you make those calls, Mr. Schultz?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Well, you did speak to her.
No, I spoke to Lance and his insurance agent.
You never spoke to his wife?
No.
That is a
Your
lie.
Honor, in all due respect,
Your Honor,
that's
that is not true.
Okay. You're suing for the amount of your wages. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Huh? You're clearly entitled to your wages. Mr. Schultz, you have a suit pending, according to you, in your local state court.
Yes, Your Honor.
That's in Texas, against him for the damage to the car. There is no counterclaim here, so I don't have to entertain it. You are required to pay a salary. If you have discomfort with an employee, if you are dissatisfied with their performance, as clearly you were, dissatisfied with his performance, your option is not to use him again.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Want justice? Call 1-888-800-JUDY.
Judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of their request, which is, you don't dispute the amount is of $194, do you?
Your Honor, can I say one thing?
Sure.
Since then, Mr. Lamberton's filed a case against me with the Texas Labor Board, and they've already gone and seized the money out of my account, plus an additional $75 out of my checking account.
Did you file a complaint with the Texas Labor Board?
Right, I certainly did.
And were you successful?
This is dated August 27th. I filed it in June. I still have not received any payment whatsoever from Mr.
Well,
Schultz.
Mr. Schultz indicates, sir, that the money was, in fact, taken out of his checking account, of his business checking account. Is that correct?
That's correct. I
Show
have the
me.
paperwork. Your Honor, I'm sorry.
Well, it's possible, Mr. Lamberton, that, as they say, the check's in the mail. So I will withhold signing a judgment in this case in the amount of $194. And I suggest that what you do is you check with the Texas Labor Board to see whether they, in fact, do have the funds. Do you understand?
Sure.
If they do not have the funds, then I will sign a judgment in 30 days. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway, provisionally, the judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount requested of $194. Thank you.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy, provider Jackie Foreman claims next-door neighbor Maurice Benvenu owes her for 6 months of babysitting. Maurice says she never babysat.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 282 on the calendar in the matter of Foreman versus Benvenu. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have seats, please.
Ms. Foreman, according to your papers, the defendant, who was a former friend and neighbor of yours, owes you $5,000.
Yes.
There was a loan, allegedly, that you made to him, but the bulk of the money is for babysitting that you allegedly did for his children.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
He says he doesn't owe you anything. Is that right?
That's right.
So let's go with the big money first. How much do you say he owes you for babysitting?
$4,500.
Now tell me how this babysitting arrangement came about.
Okay, I originally met him a few months before I started babysitting for him because we were neighbors, and he volunteered to give me rides to work, and I became unemployed because the restaurant closed down, and he said he needed a babysitter and he'd be willing to hire me. At first he agreed to pay me $500 a month out of his daughter's disability check, and he was going to get me on a program that would pay me $800 a month from then on.
So in what month did you supposedly start babysitting for him?
In January.
January of this year?
Yes.
Okay, and how many children does he have?
4.
Are they all school-age children?
Yeah, Cassandra's 7, 6, 4, and 3 years old when I started babysitting.
Did they all go to school?
Yes, so we ended up getting the baby in school later on in the year.
When?
We got her, Cynthia in school about March, I believe.
Now, in the month of January, because you say you started in January.
Yes, that's correct.
Did he pay you?
No.
In the month of February, did he pay you?
No, ma'am.
Did you get paid for March?
No.
Did you work for him in April?
Yes.
Did you get paid for April?
No, ma'am.
When did you stop working for him?
At the end of June. I told him that I could no longer babysit for you because I need money, so I need to start looking for a real job.
It took you 6 months to figure out that you weren't going to get paid?
Yeah. He made it look like he was really trying to get me on this program, and he kept saying, just a couple more weeks, bear with me, come on, and you'll be on this program and you'll be having your money.
What kind of program, Ms. Foreman?
It's a program through welfare that will pay for the babysitter while he works.
But he wasn't working?
No, he claimed that he was looking for a job.
Well, they're not going to pay a babysitter while he's not working.
What I understood was that they would pay even while he's searching for a job.
Miss Foreman, you do not appear as if you are a totally unintelligent woman. I mean, this government is sometimes a little screwy.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got a man who you say is on welfare with his 4 children. You on welfare with your 4 children, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
This man who's on welfare tells you he's going to pay you $500 a month. So you know he's not working. You know he has no money. You know he gets just enough sustenance to keep himself and his children. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So where did you think he was going to get this money from to pay you $500 a month until he got on a program?
Because at the time, his oldest daughter, Cassandra, was receiving disability because she's got cerebral palsy.
Her disability is not supposed to go for your babysitting services. Her disability is supposed to go for taking care of her, and she was in school, right?
Yes.
Now, what do you have to say with regard to this babysitting business?
She never babysitted for me. Every time she came over, I just used to let her come over to the house and do her studying. Like she said, give her rides to work. And we became friends, but there was no babysitting. I don't need a babysitter. I'm not working. I'm home all the time.
Why aren't you working?
I got 4 kids from ages 8 to 3.
Where's their mother?
Not at the house.
Where is she?
I'm in the program.
So you're home alone with the children?
Yes.
Well, it sounds to me as if your 4 kids need full-time care, probably some assistance as well. Who are you?
I'm her boyfriend, Your Honor.
Well, step up here. You have something that you think is important?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Tell me your name.
My name is Jeffrey Field.
Go ahead.
I came over on a couple times to see how everything was working out, and on a couple occasions I heard him say that, yes, he was going to pay her $500 a month to babysit for these children in front of me.
Mm-hmm. When did he say he was going to pay her the $500 a month?
He said he was looking for temporary work and that the second he found a job and his first paycheck that he got would go to her.
Fine. He never got a job.
No, he did not.
Well, if he never got a job, then his first paycheck couldn't go to her. Right?
True.
So if somebody said to me, I want you to come and babysit for me, and I'm going to pay you $500 a month as soon as I get a job for my first paycheck, if I listen to those words very carefully, they would mean if I don't get a job and if I don't get a first paycheck, you are getting nothing. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Perfect. When you leave court today, you can explain it to her. Now let's get to the other part of the money that you say that he owes you. You say you made a loan to him.
Yes, ma'am. I loaned him $624 for some bills that he needed to pay. He didn't have any money at the time because the bills were late. And
does that sound familiar to you?
No, ma'am. My bills are always on time. I get paid on
You have any
Twice
proof of
a
that?
month to take care of all that.
Not of that. I have when I withdrew the money from my bank. But I did open up a phone line in his house, and he agreed to pay the phone bill, and I could make calls on it, and he'd pay for those too. As long as I made the agreement that as long as he paid the bill, then that's fine, because it wouldn't affect my credit. And in July, I shut the phone off, and the final bill was not paid by the defendant. I ended up paying the final bill.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She's got about 100 birds in her house.
I have 7 cockatiels, 12 parakeets, and a finch.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jackie Foreman says her neighbor, father of 4, Maurice Benvenu, owes her for babysitting and for some loans. He says she never babysat, and any money he borrowed, he repaid.
Ms. Foreman, I don't understand. He doesn't pay you because he has no money. And not only doesn't he pay you, but according to you, you loaned him $624.
Yes, I loaned.
That you have no proof of. Why do you think she would make up this story that she loaned you this money, sir?
Like I said, we were friends, and I used to let her come by the house and study and, you know, play with the kids and everything.
Well, what was wrong with her house?
Well,
why didn't you stay in your house?
Because he asked me to come over and watch the kids.
No.
So she just liked to come over to your house with the chaos of 4 children?
My house isn't chaos.
Wherever they're... We have 4 kids?
Yeah, but it's not. I got a big backyard. They go out and play and, you know.
Now I'm beginning not to believe you, sir, if you tell me that your house with 4 little children, all under the age of 7, is not chaos. Every house with 4 little children under the age of 7 is chaos. Why did you put the phone in your house, sir?
Because at the time I was giving her a ride to work and school, I didn't have a phone, and that was a way of her getting in contact with me to pick her up.
Mr. Benvenu, does that make sense even to you?
Yeah.
Does that make sense even to you, sir? She doesn't have to put a phone in your house. She can get a pager if you want to she wants to contact you to give her a ride to work. She can come and knock at your door. She doesn't have to put a phone in your house. What, were you conning her or what?
No, conning her. She never gave me nothing. She didn't do nothing for me. I was being a friend to her, to let her come over into my home. The reason she didn't study at her home is because her mother and all the birds and whatever, they were having a conflict. So I was just letting her come over. Birds? She's got about 100 birds in her house.
What kind of birds do you have?
I have 7 cockatiels, 12 parakeets, and a finch.
Are they your birds?
3 of them are mine. The rest are my parents.
Let me see the phone bill.
I don't have an actual copy of the last phone bill, but here's some bills.
It's the last phone bill that I need. Not some. But it's the last one that you say he didn't pay.
Right, I ended up mailing the phone company a check, and I have not received the canceled check yet.
Listen, Miss Foreman, this is not a guessing game. This is a court. A, the crux of your case is for back babysitting money.
Yes, ma'am.
And I find that based upon your testimony, little of his, but mostly yours, at best there was a contract to pay you for babysitting in the future if he ever got a job. Because that's what he said. He said, when I get a job, I'm going to pay you out of my first paycheck. Right? And he never got a job.
Yes, I realize this
quite
now.
Frankly, I don't really believe either one of you. I might be interested in the phone bill if I could see it, but I can't see it because you don't have it. I can't rule on that. And as far as the $624 are concerned, if you did give it to him, and I have proof not to my satisfaction that you actually gave him this money, it was the dumbest thing that you could have done. Because he was a man who had reneged on what you considered a contract for employment. January, February, March, April, May. Reneged on a contract to pay you, and still you gave him $600. So, I don't believe you, I don't believe him, the case is dismissed, that's all.
Parties are excused, you may step out.
Unfortunately, the kids will suffer because I became such good friends with their kids, too. In fact, they were calling me mother for a while, calling me mommy.
That's a total lie. My kids never called her mommy. They have their own mother.
I had warned her. I said, look, he might try to backstab you, and obviously he proved that.
And now the next case.
Parties on Montgomery versus Montgomery. Step forward, please.
Administrative assistant Debbie Montgomery is suing her stepson, Sean Montgomery, 22, for parking tickets. He says she owed him for a gun.
I've read both of your statements, and there are certain things in these statements, certain facts that we say in the trade that can be stipulated. Those facts are as follows. This is your stepson.
Yes.
And you let him use one of your cars.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
And while you used that car that was registered in your name?
Yes.
You got parking tickets.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
You acknowledge you got parking tickets.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And you acknowledge that you didn't pay those parking tickets.
No, I don't acknowledge that. Not fully.
You didn't pay the parking tickets when you got them.
Right.
And so penalties built up and all that other kind of good stuff. And your stepmother paid how much for these parking tickets?
$379.96.
Okay, so those are the stipulated facts. Stipulated that if they're your parking tickets, you got them, you didn't pay them. You say you don't have to pay them, and you have a defense. So now I'm going to hear you.
Okay. I gave Debbie $160 for a gun that I was supposed to purchase that my father owned. My father is currently incarcerated right now. And
this is Debbie.
Right. Now, Debbie was supposed to produce the gun to me for $300. I gave her $160 as a down payment. Now, I never saw the gun at any time. I said, give me the gun, I'll give you the rest of the money. But I'm not going to give you the money for the tickets until I see the invoices of exactly what I have to pay. Because I never did see that.
Well, you saw them when you got the ticket.
I saw them when I got the tickets. I never saw...
You keep smiling when you say that, sir.
Is that a bad thing?
That's a bad thing. Take that as a bad sign.
Okay.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What'd you do with the parking tickets when you got them, Mr. Montgomery?
I left them in the car until I gave the car back to Mrs. Montgomery. No, Your Honor.
No, you didn't.
He didn't even tell me.
No, you didn't, Mr. Montgomery.
Closed captioning, sponsored in part by Real Cases, Real People, Judge Judy. Administrative assistant Debbie Montgomery is suing her stepson, Sean Montgomery, for parking tickets. He says she owed him for a gun.
You gave her $160 for a gun. What kind of gun was this that you were going to buy?
I believe it's a Smith & Wesson 9mm blue steel.
Were you selling him that gun?
I was going to, yes.
And then you didn't give him the gun?
No, I didn't get the rest of the money.
Okay. So far, you want to work off this $160 for the parking tickets?
Yes, ma'am.
And what's next?
Several times I told her, all you have to do is either fax me, make a copy and mail it to me, exactly what I have to pay, because in the past, I don't know about recently, but in the past, Debbie's had a drug problem with methamphetamine.
Wait a minute.
Okay?
I'm not interested. Listen to me. I'm not interested in the past.
Okay.
I'm not interested in the present.
That
It has
was the
nothing to
reason.
do with you. Listen to me, sir. I'm going to jump one step ahead of your logic.
Okay. All right.
If you sent her the money for the parking tickets that you owed, and let us assume that based upon what you were about to tell me, because I'm smart, that you were afraid she wouldn't pay the parking tickets with the money you gave her. Is that
Right.
what you were about to tell me? That's what you intimated here.
Okay.
That's none of your business because it has to do with her. Has to do with her registration for her car. She wouldn't be able to register the car.
Right.
They'd send out a sheriff for her. They'd put a lien on her house. You know, she might get arrested. But meanwhile, your obligation is finished. Because the tickets are for the car, not for the driver of the car.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that's a lot of baloney that you were just about to tell me and potentially embarrass your stepmother. So I don't want to hear it.
Okay.
Good. Show him the tickets that you paid.
I just have the copies of what they sent me, notices that they weren't paid, and my registration when I had to pay the tickets.
All right. I'm going to look at it.
Thank you. And the tickets are, the address is right in front of his apartment where he lives.
He's not denying he
I'm
got
not
the
denying
tickets.
that, yeah. Right.
He got the
Okay.
tickets.
I'm not denying that at all.
Got the tickets. All right, now let me see. Did you see them?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Can I see them, please? parked in front of a fire hydrant?
I believe so.
Are you laughing? It's not funny. When you borrow somebody else's car and you get a ticket, you don't take it and throw it in the garbage, but just say, oh, not my ticket. That's something a 16-year-old would do. Maybe if I hide the ticket, nobody will know. Why didn't you pay the tickets when you got them?
At the time, I didn't have the money. That's the main reason why I didn't pay.
Well, if you didn't have the money, Mr. Montgomery, for the first ticket, see, that I can understand. You got a ticket at 10:03 on the 16th of October. And total due on that ticket with all the penalties for non-payment was $97.94.
Right.
So if you didn't have the money, then you parked more carefully. So then a couple of weeks later, you must have been really flush because you parked at a fire hydrant. I suppose you didn't have money then either.
No, ma'am.
And then on the very next day after you got this fire hydrant ticket, you must have really had a lot of money because you parked in the same spot that you parked at first time you got a ticket. And then on November 19th, got another ticket, $97.94 with penalties. You still didn't have any money, right?
That's correct.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Want justice? Call 1-888-800-JUDY.
What'd you do with the parking tickets when you got them, Mr. Montgomery?
I believe I left them in the car until I gave the car back to Mrs. Montgomery.
Did you find parking tickets in your car?
No, Your Honor.
No, you didn't.
He didn't even tell me.
No, you didn't, Mr. Montgomery. I want you to think back a little more clearly, sir. When you got the parking tickets, what'd you do with them?
I took them out of the car when I gave her the car back.
You mean you saved them all?
No, I did not.
What'd you do with them?
I threw them away.
How old are you?
22.
Mr. Montgomery, you got to be more responsible. If you use somebody's vehicle, you're not supposed to act like a teenager.
You're absolutely right.
Good. You're $199.96. Judgment is for the plaintiff. Thank you.
Advisor excused. You may step out.
Thank you.
Hold on, Bird.
Yes, Judge.
I just checked it. Telling me he owes her $219.96.
I'll let him know, Judge.
Thank you.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
I'll give her $219. I don't have to see her or the rest of the family ever again. $200 is worth it to me to get rid of all of them.
I would have rather it not come to this, but I tried going to his house. Never answered his door, was his car parked there.
I take my licking and keep on going.
Her aunt, 37-year-old roofer Debbie Maggard, for keeping her TV, VCR, and boombox after she kicked her out.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 329 on the calendar in the matter of Davis versus Maggard. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Miss Davis, the defendant is your aunt, who
Yes,
you
ma'am.
say kept some of your property. She doesn't deny she kept your property when she told you to leave her home, and you did rather abruptly with your 4-year-old daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
She says she's keeping your property because you owe her some money. That's the story?
Yes, ma'am.
Why were you living with your aunt?
Because I got out of the Air Force the 21st of July, and she told me she was having a very hard time paying the bills, and they were approximately 3 months behind, getting ready to shut off her utilities and phone and everything. So she asked me if I'd come and help her, which I said that I would.
And you were looking for a place to live?
Yes, ma'am. I had the money to get my own place, but I guess I'm too nice when it comes to my family, and I offered to help her. In exchange that she would help me, she would watch my daughter in exchange for me helping her, and we came to a verbal agreement.
Just a second. So your agreement was that you would move in. Were you supposed to pay any rent?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the rent?
$250 rent, $50 utilities, and $100 food, which came to $400 a month, ma'am.
Okay, so you were supposed to give her $400 a month.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was in July.
That was the 22nd of July. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what happened? You lived there July, you lived there in August, something happened in September.
Yes, approximately the end of August. My aunt has a 16-year-old daughter, Chrisanne. Her best friend is also 16, had moved in there too. She has a 22-year-old boyfriend.
That is wrong.
Shh. Get to you in a minute. Go ahead.
Her boyfriend, one night I woke up and he was fondling me. I told my aunt the next morning. She doesn't recall it. It happened a second time. I told her again. Nothing was done about it. Third time, it happened. I told her, she said, well, confront him. I confronted him. We, gosh, went over it for a good couple hours.
Where did you
arguing.
confront him?
I confronted him at my aunt's house in the living room. I confronted...
Who else was present?
My aunt, my cousin Chrisanne, and his girlfriend. Okay. His girlfriend was crying and everything. I didn't want to do that to her. I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't want to make a scene. But there's no way I'm going to let someone sit there and fondle me while I'm sleeping. There's no way. I never made any attempt with this gentleman at all. I've never done that, and my aunt can't say that I have.
Okay, so was it on that evening that your aunt asked you to leave?
Yes, that was the 5th of September.
That was the 22nd of September, because she filed the case on the 23rd of September.
What date was it?
It was the 5th of September because it was on a Saturday. I got paid the 4th of September. I gave her some money out of my paycheck. I gave her money almost every week, which I have it all written down. I do have a sworn testimony.
So you lived there for between 6 and 7 weeks at your aunt's house?
Yes, I lived there for approximately 45 days, ma'am.
Now, did you have any arrangement with your aunt with regard to babysitting for your daughter?
Yes, ma'am. When I came back from Texas, it was $200 a month to watch my daughter.
Where had your daughter been when you were in the Air Force?
She was with her father in San Diego. She spent 1 week with my aunt from July 14th to the 21st of July. I was in Texas for 1 week when I was on a 30-day leave. And
your agreement was you were going to pay her for babysitting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you say it was how much that she was supposed to pay you for babysitting?
She was supposed to pay me I had her write it out before she left.
Let me see.
She was supposed to pay me $350 a month, regardless how long she was gone, because when she came to my house in April, the 1st of April...
Don't go back to April.
Okay.
Payment arranged for taking care of the daughter starting July the 8th. Well, it seems that she paid you some money that she owed you.
She did pay me some money.
Yes, and it says here to be paid $350.
That is, okay,
to be paid by August the 5th.
Right, okay.
Or as soon as she gets paid from the Air Force.
That's right, because she had not, she told me she had not received any money. Okay, well, you can't give money from people that you don't have.
This was 7/8.
7/8.
She owed you $350.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and then she gave me a $189 voucher, which she had gotten previously from the Air Force as a draw on her pay.
Just a second, I see $189. I see this pay there.
And I gave her credit.
Just a second. Bottom line is, as of the 8th of July, she owed you $350.
Correct.
Is that right?
No, ma'am. I told her that I give her $250 a month for childcare and then $100 for food.
On this date, you signed a paper saying that you owed her $350. That's what this paper says.
Yes, that was for rectoral.
That's for before. Now, she was there, I don't see more than 6 or 7 weeks. And your agreement for rent was $250?
$250.
How much did she pay you?
She paid me approximately $175 for July. She paid me $70 for August. She paid me nothing for September. She left the last week in September. Okay? I have it all written
She gave you a lot of money for July.
No, she gave me, okay, but that went back to to April 1st, okay? She moved in my house April 1st, okay? Saying that she would only be there 1 week, okay, because she was supposed to be going to boot camp. Well, the 1 week ended up to be 5 weeks because she had a lot of trouble getting into boot camp. She had to recertify 3 times to get into boot camp, okay?
No, ma'am.
And meanwhile, on the 9th of April, she took her daughter to San Diego with the dad. Before that, when she moved in, we discussed that I would watch the child, okay? So I set all my finances up around that, okay?
Well, I don't know what you're talking to me about. As of July 8th, she owed you $350. What are you going back to April for?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She knows that, no, I don't care who comes in the home. You don't come on to no one. She knows whoever is it, you don't touch them. You don't have nothing to do with them. If you feel you're going to, you leave. Get away from them.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Amarissa Davis, a mother of a 4-year-old, was kicked out of her Aunt Debbie Maggard's home without her TV, VCR, and boombox. Amarissa wants her belongings back. Debbie is countersuing for rent and childcare.
Madam, I want you to be quiet and just listen to me very carefully. You gave me a signed note that says, as of 7/8/98, she owed you $350. I don't want to hear anything else about what happened in April or March or February. Nothing.
Okay.
And she lived with you a relatively short period of time, which is how
she
come
lived with-
I don't understand how
she
you
lived with
come
me-
up. Shh. Okay. How you come up with a figure that she owes you of $1,500.
I have it right here.
Then let me take a look at it. Which is why you kept her property.
Which is why I kept her property, because when I asked her to move, she said...
Why did you ask her to move?
Because she told me on Thursday evening, Thursday morning, Nikos took her to work, okay?
Who's Nikos?
Nikos is Andrea's boyfriend.
You mean your daughter's friend's boyfriend?
Right, because her car would not start.
So
took
her to work.
He took her to work, okay? Then I had no way to pick her up, okay? So I asked my friend Mark. I went with my friend Mark. We went and picked her up. Then we went to Chief's. In front of Chief's Auto Parts, okay, for him to buy a battery. In front of Chief's, she tells me, I have something to tell you. I said, what do you have to tell me? If it's about me, I don't want Mark to hear it. She said, it's about me. And so she tells me, Nikos came on to me and all this other stuff. He's been doing all this. I said, Amarissa, why didn't you tell me this? She said, I tried. I said, okay, then. I'll tell you what we'll do. If you feel, she said, I don't want him coming to the house anymore. I said, Amarissa, we have to figure out why he's doing this. And if he's a cheat, then we don't want Andrea to have a cheat. So what we decided we would do, okay, is I told her, I said, we'll let him come back to the house. We'll let him stay another night. I'll sleep right on the couch. If he comes to your bed, you get out of the bed, you come tap me on the shoulder and let me witness him in your bed. Then no one can say that you're a liar. There's 2 people saying he sees you in your bed. It never happened.
Just a second. Just a second. So that's what you suggested. You suggested that you let him come back for a night. She sleep in her bed.
Because he said, wait, little girl, you'll know you want me, and go ahead, we'll go ahead, and tonight I'll have you. I'll do the same thing I did. This is what she tells me.
Okay.
Okay, so I said, let him set himself up.
Okay.
It never happened. Okay.
So he didn't do anything that night.
Okay, right, okay, so...
Shh. He didn't do anything that night.
No.
So what happened the next day?
Okay, so she told my daughter, Chris-Ann, the next morning, Saturday morning. And then Chris-Ann told Andrea. And so Andrea asked Nikos, and he said, that's not what happened. I just didn't want to tell you what happened. So then I said, fine. And Marissa came home, and I said, this is bull. I waited Saturday, I waited Sunday, and then I said Monday, I said, this is bull. No one's saying nothing. So I said, Marissa, I decided that if this is the way she was, she knew the rules in the house. She knows that, no, I don't care who comes in the home. You don't come on to no one. She knows whoever is it, you don't touch them. You don't have nothing to do with them. If you feel you're going to, you leave. Get away from them. Okay? Well, I packed all her stuff.
Just a minute, why did you pack her stuff?
Because she didn't pay me no rent. She wasn't paying me. She was stiffing me, okay? I was supposed to have been paid for babysitting. I babysat in August, and from July and August, okay? Instead of paying me, she went and moved to Mark's house for 4 days. And then she got another babysitter that I lined up, okay? That I was gonna get ready to go to work, okay? So I said, Marissa, I said, I have a babysitter that will babysit for both of us. But we're gonna try her out. So while I'm helping Rob with his roof, we'll see if Lisa's gonna work out, okay? And then we sat there and we made an agreement, okay? And then my daughter Heather came over. We were cleaning out the bottom bedroom, preparing for her. And she told my daughter everything, all the agreements, okay? So when it comes to her getting her check and being paid, she didn't pay me. She just changed babysitters. And she was going to move to Mark's. Then she decided she didn't like Mark, so she calls me on Thursday 4 days later and says, can I come back home? And I said, yes, I never knew you moved.
All right.
Can I explain something to you?
Well, I would hope somebody does. Yes.
From what happened with Marissa and Nico, that happened the night before, and if she was really uncomfortable with him, why did she ask him to give her a ride to work the next day to work?
Excuse me, ma'am. I didn't. I told my aunt a couple times. There was the 2 times that I did tell her previously before Chiefs that she didn't remember me telling her.
Let's say she didn't remember, but you say that he came into the room and he fondled you at night, and the next day you took a ride from him to your job.
I didn't have a way to work. I called my friends. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. She told me, well, if you value your job, if you want to go to work, you'll take the ride.
It's really not important. You left the house. You can't hold her property. All I have to do is, you can't hold her property. You have to give her property back. You have 1 week to do that. Now, how much money did you give her while you were there that you can establish to my satisfaction?
Ma'am, I gave her $200. That was the 22nd of July, sometime in July on Jamie's birthday party. I gave her $150 cash.
She gave me $50.
Just a minute. You gave her $200 on the 22nd
of July. I gave her, that was the check for the SMUD. It was approximately $200.
What's SMUD?
SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District. That's the 180.
SMUD?
That's what they call it, yes. That was the $189 that she has down there.
Just a minute. She's already given you credit for that. I'm talking about
I gave her, August 2nd, I gave her $200 cash. That was for Pacific Gas and Electric.
She did not.
Because they were getting ready to shut it off.
She did not give me no money.
Do you have proof of that?
I do have a witness that has wrote a sworn statement that he has witnessed me do it.
Your Honor, she had no money to give anybody anything because she had not worked long enough to get a paycheck.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Miss Maggart, you're not listening. You're talking. You can't talk and listen at the same time.
I'll shut up.
Good.
Closed captioning, sponsored in part by Real Cases, Real People, Judge Judy. Amarissa Davis says her aunt, Debbie Maggart, kept her belongings after she kicked her out for not paying rent.
So according to you, since she moved in, she gave you $245.
That's all she's gave me.
Okay.
Excuse me.
What?
No. I've given her $1,170. I worked for a veterinary hospital in Folsom. I made $12 an hour. I worked 5 days a week. There's no way that I
You have to be able to establish that to me, madam. When you give somebody money for rent, you're supposed to get a receipt.
I know, but I have a checking account in Lackland Air Force
Why would
Base.
she keep your property?
Basically because my sister stole from me and I let my sister get away with it, and she's trying to do the same thing.
That's
my
not
aunt
true.
has
Your
always
Honor,
been
that's
jealous
not true.
of me.
The reason I kept her property is because when I asked her to leave, she came back the next day, and I told her when she left, I said, Amarissa, I packed your stuff, just take your stuff now. She did not have room in her car, so I left it in my front living room. She calls me in the afternoon and says, I would like to come over and get my property. I told her, come in an hour and a half because I have to go someplace. She shows up in a half hour. I opened the door. She says, well, what are you doing here? I said, surprise, I didn't go anywhere.
Let me tell you this, Miss Maggart.
Yes.
How old are you?
37 years old.
How old are you?
26, ma'am.
You're her aunt. Are you her mother's sister?
Yes.
Do you speak to your mother?
Yes, I do, ma'am.
Do you speak to your sister?
Always.
So what I don't understand is what this hostility is with your niece.
I don't have any hostility towards her,
But you
okay?
do, I see it.
What I have, okay, is that she moved in, and I, out of the gracious of my heart, okay, my gut told me don't do it because she uses everybody. But my heart said she's trying. If she's trying, give her a chance because she's trying.
So then what you do, quite frankly, Miss Maggart, is when
So
you have your
frankly,
sister's
she used me,
child,
and I didn't like it.
When you have your sister's child who has clearly in her life made some mistakes, according
That's
to
right.
you, and you've tried your best, and whatever it is doesn't work out, what you do usually with family is you say, listen, you have to leave. I'm going to give you a week to find a new place.
I did that.
Shh. Quiet down. Just try to open your ears and listen for a second.
Okay.
Going to give you a week to move out. I can't help you anymore. Whatever it is, I don't want to be angry with you.
I did that.
You didn't. You kept her stuff.
No, Your Honor, I did
No,
that,
listen
okay?
to me. Miss Maggart, you're not listening. You're talking. You can't talk and listen at the same time.
I'll shut up.
Good. That's what you do to family. You say, didn't do the right thing, owed me money, she's not paying me money, she's got a 4-year-old child. You have other children other than this 4-year-old child?
Yes, ma'am. I have a 9-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter.
Okay, so that there were a lot of things in your 26, 27 years that you probably did that you were not too smart.
Yes,
and maybe
ma'am.
your family has bailed you out more than once. But what you say is to family, I learned my lesson.
And I'm
not going to help you anymore.
I understand that, okay, until I got served by the marshal, okay, for this suit.
Well, because you kept her stuff.
And I would have gave her her stuff if she would just gave me, okay, I babysat for her. If I would have babysat, she could not have worked.
Excuse me, you see what I mean? You can't do anything. All right.
Okay,
Judgment! Hey, quiet. That's it. Heard enough.
Judge Judy is ready to rule. Want justice? Call 1-888-800-JUDY.
The court will prepare an order today that within 5 days of today, accompanied by the marshal or sheriff, you will go and retrieve all of the property that's there. That includes television, VCR, recliner, and a bed. All of her property.
She can have it all.
All of her property.
Every bit of it.
Now, in the few weeks that you were there, and you were there for 6 or 7 weeks, you had an agreement with her that you were supposed to pay for babysitting, you're supposed to pay for food, you're supposed to pay for rent. You have absolutely no proof that you paid her anything. Now, I can't think of any reason, since you both speak to your mother and your sister, so that there is nothing else going on there that would cause this animus, for her to be so angry, except that she feels as if she was used and abused by you. And there was clearly a history. There was really a history with regard to this. I mean, the thing with the boyfriend is stupid.
That's irritating.
I mean, the thing with the boyfriend, quite frankly, is stupid.
That's right.
I don't know why you open up your house to everybody anyway. I mean, I really don't. However, clearly wouldn't have written these things out if there wasn't some problem in the past with regard to money. So judgment in this case is as follows. All the property returned within 5 days. And, madam, I'm giving you $600 towards whatever money you think that she owes you. But I want you to listen to me very carefully. It's just sad that it had to come to this, because this is not what family does to each other. That's all.
Parties are excused. Step out, please.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy, claims website advertisers Jennifer Smith and Tracy Hudson betrayed him by exposing the internet virgin story as a hoax.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 290 on the calendar in the matter of Tipton versus Smith Hudson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Oh, Mr. Tipton.
Yes, ma'am.
This is so interesting. Because I know very little about computers, so I'm sure you're going to explain this to me. According to you, these two ladies who you hired to do some work for you breached a confidentiality clause in a contract.
Yes, ma'am.
Resulting in you losing a whole lot of business.
Yes, ma'am.
And very briefly, sir, would you explain to me how the computer hooked up into this?
The internet is like a vast radio system around the world. Back in the 60 years ago when they had the War of the Worlds Hope.
Ah, don't go back years ago.
Okay.
Just tell me what your project was, Mr. Tipton.
My project was an internet website, or what we called an engineered educational event. And what?
An engineered educational event that involved, according to your papers, two people having sex for the first time on the internet.
The topic was two 18-year-old virgins that were going to lose their virginity live on the internet.
How wonderful. What an educational tool. And you were going to produce this?
It was written and produced by me, yes, ma'am.
What do you mean written and produced? So it wasn't real?
No, ma'am. This was a hoax.
So you were trying to fool people on the internet?
Exactly. To watch our show.
And you hired these two young ladies to do what?
To create a controversy, since we had limited funds, by sending out email messages about the topic, which I admit was in poor bad taste, much like the Kenneth Starr report. But what we did was, the content of the website was a positive message about safe sex, AIDS awareness, and abstinence. And that was the show.
So?
So we hired these two ladies to send out email messages letting people know about this. And that would cause a controversy, and the media, doing what the media does, picked it up. And it quickly became one of the top websites in the world.
So they did what they were supposed to do.
Yes, they did do, according to the contract, they sent out a portion of the emails they said they would.
And then what happened?
Then they broke the agreement by telling another company precisely what we had hired them to do, and that broke the confidentiality agreement.
They told another company that what, according to you?
I received a phone call on July 21st from Jennifer.
Who's Jennifer?
I'm Jennifer.
She was very upset because there had been a lot of things in the media because the hoax had been exposed by this other company we'd gone with. They told this company that they had done emails for us that started the controversy. She admitted this to me. She admitted that she got paid $5,000 for it, and that was in breach of our confidentiality agreement.
So then what happened with your sex program?
The sex program was eventually put up and is still on the website now, the entire show as it was designed.
So it's there?
The show is there.
So how were you damaged?
Well, for one thing, they profited by breaching the contract, which says in our contract that they can't do that. And by exposing the hoax before the show was done, like you had that reaction that, oh my God, they're putting virgins on the internet. No, that was the hook to get people to watch the show.
That wasn't my reaction. Don't try to read my reaction.
Okay,
My reaction, quite frankly, Mr. Tipton, was it's wonderful to use the age of computers for education, as you indicate. I somehow doubt, sir, that your motives were educational when you put this piece together.
There were many motives.
Money was the first one.
No, ma'am.
You mean teaching people about safe sex was your motive, to have
That
people
was
watch,
second.
to have people watch two people having sex on the internet?
Well, they weren't going to do that. So they were going to follow this story for 18 days, and they would learn things about AIDS that they didn't know.
So you were going to have them watch this story. Hopefully, at the end of the story, they were going to see these two people at the end having sex.
No, they would abstain at the end.
Just listen to me.
Okay.
What you wanted was for them to watch your website for 18 days.
Yes, ma'am.
Which would bring in revenues for you. Somehow.
In some way, shape, or form, yes.
Right. And after the 18 days of people watching and panting, waiting for the ultimate moment to happen.
Exactly.
Nothing was going to happen because your moral message at the end was, don't just say no to sex.
Exactly. You always have the choice to change your mind.
Who's speaking?
First of all,
You are?
I'm Tracy Hudson,
Tracy Hudson.
Jennifer's partner.
Okay. So, let's hear.
Okay, first of all, as to his motive for the website, you were actually correct. I don't know if you're allowed to see
Miss
this or
Hudson.
not.
I never doubted for a moment that
Okay.
Mr. Tipton's motives were altruistic.
Okay, but here, if you want this is an email from Mr. Tipton to Jennifer. Say, when he first came up with the idea wanting us to do the work for him, and right here it says, I have an idea about how to raise money to finance the making of my movie, but I would have to do bulk email to let people know about the internet service that I'm offering. Are you opposed to sending out adult-oriented emails? And at the end, I know this sounds weird, but the bottom line is to get this movie made. His motive was to finance his movie.
Did you write that?
Yes, ma'am, and that is completely true.
Okay.
Good.
And now I'll let Jennifer take over because she spoke with Ken.
Go. Let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Did you, in fact, have a contract with him?
No, we did not.
Well, Mr. Tipton, you said that was a contract. Can I see a copy of the contract, please?
Yes, ma'am.
What he's showing you is I'm sorry.
Tell me what he's showing me. I'm really good at figuring it out.
Okay.
This is the contract.
Yes, ma'am.
That you
was
say
faxed.
they breached.
Yes.
Which forms the basis of your lawsuit.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Tipton.
Yes, ma'am.
They didn't sign it.
It was faxed back to them. They didn't return it.
No, it
Did
was
you-
not.
They didn't sign it. You signed it.
Yes, ma'am. And I faxed it back to them.
Right. Well, whether you faxed it back to them or you didn't, or you hand-delivered it or you messengered it to them, this is not an executed contract.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
If I don't get the money to make the movie through the website, then you will get a part in the movie, and I will complete that sentence, that I can't make because I didn't get the money because I didn't have a successful website.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ken Tipton says website workers Jennifer Smith and Tracy Hudson betrayed him by exposing the Internet Virgin story as a hoax.
This is not an executed contract because they did not execute it. But unless you tell me that there was a verbal agreement with regard to confidentiality, something that you do not mention, by the way, in your papers, they could not breach a contract, either verbal, certainly not written, because there is no written contract. Now, was there a verbal agreement with regard to confidentiality, or did you just ask them to send out the email?
No, prior to that agreement, we had a verbal agreement as well as my own confidentiality agreement that they did not want to sign because it did not take into account their work for hire stuff.
What I'm asking you, sir, is when you asked them to perform this service for you, you asked them to send out the email and you were going to pay them.
Yes, ma'am.
How much were you going to pay them?
For a total of 16 million emails, $6,000, if the website was successful.
If the website was successful?
Yes, ma'am.
And what if it was unsuccessful?
Then they didn't get paid, as it says in the contract.
That's what it says in this unsigned contract.
The contract that I believed I had with them, yes.
I may have believed you had with it, but I wouldn't sign a contract that said if I did the work and if you weren't successful in getting the website up, they wouldn't get anything.
Well, they also got a part in the movie, which is in the contract.
That you weren't going to be able to finance unless the website was successful.
Exactly.
Don't you understand, Mr. Tipton? Let's follow this logically, sir. You couldn't do the movie unless you got the website going.
Right.
And unless you made money on the website.
Right.
So let's see how smart you are. Because what you're suggesting is that you were really smart, and that if they signed this, they would have been really dumb. Because what you're saying is, I need the money to make my movie. If I don't get the money, I can't make my movie. I will pay you $6,000 if I'm able to get the money to make my movie through the successful website.
Yeah, exactly.
If I don't make money on this website, I'm not going to pay you the $6,000, but you're going to get a part in the movie. Is that what you're telling me?
Eventually, if I ever find it.
Not eventually. That doesn't say eventually in here, I'm sure. It does say, but if I don't get the money to make the movie through the website, then you will get a part in the movie, and I will complete that sentence, that I can't make because I didn't get the money because I didn't have a successful website. This is a work for hire.
Yes, ma'am.
And potentially they were going to end up with nothing. Why didn't you sign this?
Because we had sent it over to him for his review, and he never did fax it back to us, and everything was rolling along very fast at this point. We started doing the work on July 10th, and we didn't fax the contract over to him until July 13th. And by the end of the week,
you started doing the work before.
Yes.
Before the 13th of July.
Yes.
When he, in fact, says that he signed this thing.
Right.
The bottom line, Jennifer talked to Ken, what day was it that you talked to him?
On July 15th.
What happened on July? What happened with this phone conversation
Okay,
that you had with him?
on July 15th, I spoke to Ken on the phone, and he was very happy with the work that we'd done. Everything was progressing as it was supposed to. The story had gained national coverage at this point, and he had expressed his concerns to me about not having a confidentiality agreement with me, asked me, kind of jokingly, not to call the National Enquirer and break his story. And he told me at that point that when it was over, when it was finished, when there was nothing more, that to go ahead and do what we wanted with it, tell whoever, whatever we could get from it.
When it was over.
Right.
And what he's not representing to you is that the company that we did sell information to broke the story on July 17th. It was national news. It was in the press, the news wires. They did a press release. His whole thing came out.
It all came
on the 17th.
On the 17th.
Yes.
We didn't even talk to that company until July 20th.
Right.
Now, is it true that the story broke on the 17th?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what conversations did you have with the 20th that inspired this company to pay you $5,000?
All we did was give them backing that the allegations they made against
Mr. Tipton, to the best of our knowledge, were correct, that their accusations were not false. That's all we gave them.
And we didn't even actually sell the information on the 20th. That was just the first time we spoke to them about selling them the information. We didn't sell them the information until the following week.
How did they come to you? Do you know?
We actually talked to them first.
You called them?
Yes, we did.
Did their dates sound correct, Mr. Tipton?
The dates sound correct, yes.
Mm-hmm. So the story that your website soap opera was a hoax broke on the 17th.
Yes, ma'am.
They merely confirmed with the press that the information that they had was accurate.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's hard to put a genie back in the bottle anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you pay them any money to do the letters?
No.
Why not?
Because it was all stipulated in the contract how they would be paid.
Well, why don't you tell me about it, since I find that there is no contract?
Well, the way
Because they have a counterclaim.
I understand. The way we had discussed it with the confidentiality and everything was that as I gained money from either selling the screenplay of the entire internet hoax or made money by selling email mailing lists and things like that, that they would be paid out of the proceeds.
So your program is still ongoing. How come you haven't paid them anything?
Because we have no money whatsoever has been made on it. In other words, the show is there for people to see what it was supposed to be about AIDS awareness, safe sex, and abstinence. If someone would take the time to actually read the story. The hook was in bad taste. The story was not.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
So how did they damage you in any way?
I was under the impression I had a contract.
No, how did they damage you? If you already told the people that it was a hoax,
yes, ma'am.
How did that damage you?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ken Tipton claims Jennifer Smith and Tracy Hudson owe him for betraying his internet virgin story as a hoax. They are countersuing Ken for not paying for their work.
You anticipated making $6,000 from this, is that right?
Yes.
You made $5,000, right?
Right. But on a separate deal.
Well, I understand that you're in business, and I think that you both sort of deserve each other. Because you're playing sort of loose and free with what is, if you understood that there was a verbal agreement between the two of you, there was no written contract with regard to confidentiality, but there was a verbal agreement, according to you, that once this story broke, then you were free to sell it. Well, the fact that somebody reports it, they evidently wanted confirmation as reasonable journalists that what they were reporting was accurate. And since you were people who contacted them in order to give them the information that what they had in the pipeline was absolutely accurate, and you were able to verify that, they were able to push the story, and he had absolutely no recourse whatsoever against them because it had been confirmed by two of his subcontractors, if you want, for want of another word.
And they were also his subcontractor.
Whatever.
Okay.
He had evidently not shared with these people who you contacted that this was all a hoax.
Yes, ma'am, I had. That's why they called to confirm it with them.
You had shared it with them?
Yes, ma'am.
So how did they damage you in any way?
They damaged I was under the impression I had a contract.
No, how did they damage you? If you already told the people that it was a hoax.
Yes, ma'am.
How did what they did by saying we sent out the emails, how did that damage you?
In no way.
In no way?
If I have no contract, then I have no damage. If you agree that that contract was not enforced.
Then you have no damage. Good, I'm glad we got to that. Tested my mettle. So then if you have no damage, your lawsuit is dismissed. Now, let's get to you. You did some work. Did you feel as if when you discussed this matter of sending out the emails that you might have done something to hurt the project?
No.
Absolutely not.
No, it was already, the damage was done. There was no more damage to be done at that point.
Except confirmation of what he had already told them?
Right.
Okay.
Or what they already knew. I'm not sure who told them what, when, but yes.
Okay. And you did the work and you were not paid?
Right.
What was your agreement with regard to payment from him?
We did have an agreement with him that we would be paid $6,000 once the site started making money. We were first on the list to be paid.
Just a second.
But
So your agreement with him was not for $6,000. Your agreement was for $6,000 if and when the website started to make money.
No.
That's just what you told me.
No. It was when, not if and when. Now, I know you're going to say that's the same thing.
That's the same thing. When the website started to make money, you would be paid your $6,000.
But how do we know when that is? He could have made a fortune off this. We have no way.
We don't know if he made money or not.
We have no way of knowing.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Want justice? Call 1-888-800-JUDY.
He says he's not made any money. He says because this thing all broke, the website did not produce any revenues. Is that what you're telling me, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I don't have subpoenaed books and records. I have to accept what he says, that he didn't make any money. And quite frankly, Ms. Smith and Ms. Hudson, I don't feel badly because for your work, you got $5,000. You got $5,000 one way or another, so you're not left whole as a result of this project. See what happens when you try to scam, when you try to do things that aren't 100%. It always comes back to haunt you. You want to say something to me, Mr. Tipton? Just say no. Which was the message of your website.
Exactly.
Right. Perfect. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy, she offered her friends a free Mexican vacation, but they got stiffed on the bill.
If you have a problem with making the arrangements and everything else, that's your problem.
Judge Judy Justice.
What people thought was this was about virgins losing their virginity, and it was not. They take the time to read the story. It's a good message.
We'd never dealt with a topic like that before.
It was a hoax. We wanted people to read the story.
A 36-year-old homemaker Sandy Lang claims furniture store owner Lizette Guerra promised her an all-expense-paid vacation to Mexico. Sandy says the trip ended up costing her thousands. She wants Lizette to pay.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 345 on the calendar in the matter of Lang versus Guerra. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Have seats, please.
This is the case of the free trip that ended up costing you $3,800. Right?
A little more than that.
You, at the time of this whole experience, were dating the plaintiff's brother?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
You work in some capacity where you got some free trips to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And you invited your boyfriend?
Yes.
Where is he, by the way?
He's
ex-boyfriend.
Yes. Can I clarify?
His sister-in-law and brother to go along on this totally paid-for trip, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, why don't you tell me what happened when you got there?
It started at the airport. They needed $407.12 for Carlos, her cousin, plane fare. So I put that on my credit card because we were already running late, and she said, I'll take care of it. I'll call Alaskan Airlines.
So Carlos needed $407.
At that point, ma'am, they decided to go ahead and pay for it. I wish they wouldn't have, so I could.
What were you going to do with Carlos if they didn't pay?
He would have had to probably stay. I don't know. I really don't know. Okay, he would have gone with this. I don't know.
Right. So you took Carlos along, and so far it cost you $407. You're not even in the sun yet.
This is true.
So what happened when you got there?
I went down to the pool and ordered some food and drink, and at that point they said I couldn't charge it to the room. So I said, can you hold it for a minute and I'll go and talk to Lizette. And I went up to her room and she said, I'll take care of it. Go back down and it'll be just fine. I went back down and they said, no, it's not fine. I put it on my card. And the rest of the trip was the same way. Nothing could be
So
charged.
for all the food and drinks, you put on your credit card.
Or paid cash.
Or paid cash. So then what happened?
It came time to leave, and they wouldn't let Bob and Lizette go. They said they had some unresolved payment.
You were stopped at the airport, according to you.
No.
Where were you stopped?
The party left, our group left, and Bob and I were running behind. We went to the taxi. As soon as we sat in a taxi, the security from the hotel came out and said that we had an outstanding balance that we had to take care of. And at that point, we spoke to I guess the manager of the hotel, and he said that, and I explained to him, I said, this is an all-inclusive package. It includes the drinks and everything. Anyhow, he said, no, not at this hotel. It does not. Bob, my ex-boyfriend, has a heart condition. So at that point, that's when I believe Sandra Lang or his family went ahead and paid for that outstanding balance. So mainly, Bob can get home because he does have a severe heart condition.
And how much was the outstanding balance?
$3,802.
$3,802 plus $407.
Plus the $407.12 for the airfare.
So, $4,207. They said it was free. So far, the only person that got a free trip was you.
No, not quite. Not quite. I have so far, the flight tickets came out to about $7,000. The next step was when Bob and I were looking at the brochure. We were going to stay at the Resort Nuevo Vallarta. That was the original reservations. That's when it included the unlimited meals, snacks, theme nights, you know, domestic and imported drinks, everything. Well, Bob and I were looking at all the pictures, and we thought, oh, this hotel looks nice. We then called again Alaskan Airlines on August 31st and changed hotels. We missed the small print that says here all-inclusive. It did not have all-inclusive on it. When I called Alaskan Airlines, we still stayed in the package department. They never switched over to the air only.
When you say we, who made the calls?
Well, at the time, I made the calls. And
okay,
I spoke
so
to
you made the calls?
Yes, I did.
Now, how are you getting these free trips?
My friend had planned a trip for his salespeople. At that point, he could not go on this sales trip. It's a sales team. Anyhow, it was Labor Day weekend. It was non-refundable, so he gave them to me to take my kids.
How many people?
I believe it was a party of like 10 people. I'm not sure, 8 or 10.
Okay, and he gave you some kind of voucher or something?
Yeah, we had vouchers and everything, yes.
You had vouchers?
And the vouchers never changed because it was a last-minute change because he had to cancel. It was electronic, so we never really got paperwork that showed there was changes like all-inclusive and non-inclusive.
That's not their fault.
I agree.
That's your fault.
I feel very badly.
No, you feel very badly. You have to compensate them. They weren't planning on going on a weekend. And if you have a problem, if you think that you had a problem with the hotel, if you have a problem with Alaska Airlines, then you have to deal with that.
I have tried. You have no idea how much I've tried.
Well, you're going to try harder because right now you're going to give us some money. And then you can go against Alaska Airlines. I mean, somebody invites you to go on a free trip. But you weren't planning to go to Puerto Vallarta in Mexico.
No.
Your Honor.
And they certainly weren't planning on taking another couple with them that they also paid for, right?
That's correct, Your
And they
Honor.
weren't planning on taking you. You're not even with the brother anymore.
That's correct.
Right?
That's
well
correct.
So if you have a problem with the airlines, and if you have a problem with the all-inclusive, and if you have a problem with making the arrangements and not reading the small print and everything else, Ms. Guerra, that's your problem.
I agree.
Why do you? Well, good. Then what are we doing here? Now, let's get to your counterclaim. You got a counterclaim here because you say that you've been the subject of harassment.
Yes, Your Honor.
But your statement says, Ms. Guerra, ever since this happened, someone has been calling and leaving very scary messages on my machine, threatening my life and my children's lives.
That's correct.
And it says here, the guy who kept calling referred to himself as hired by the Langs. So I'm going to ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
You got this tape that you said you wanted me to listen to?
Yes, I do.
Okay, play it over there.
Sent Monday, September 21st at 10:11 p.m.
Yes, message for Lizette. Lizette, you got until 9:30 tomorrow to contact Sandy or Terry Lang. I understand you got a serious problem that needs to be attended to immediately. And if you want
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You promised them a free vacation. The only one who got a free vacation was you.
And later today,
she would not speak to me in the courtroom. She would not speak to me at all. I called her numerous times. She would not return any phone calls.
Did she ever return your call?
Never.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Sandy Lang says she was charged thousands for an all-expense-paid vacation to Mexico. She wants Lizette Guerra to pay. Lizette is countersuing over life-threatening phone calls.
Somebody asked from your side this person to call her to get this money. You need not answer me, because by answering me, you are acknowledging that you were an accomplice to the commission of a crime. Do you understand that?
I don't even know that person, Your Honor. I have no idea who that is.
Why would somebody, out of the blue, call her for $4,000, which is the exact amount of money that is owed, unless that person was in some way connected with this case?
Or connected with her. I have no doubt that she would have a friend of hers make the phone call purposely for a countersuit. There's no reason for any friend, relative, anyone that I know to make a call like that.
That is sick.
I wouldn't instigate that. It's beyond my apprehension. I have no idea.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Prior to all this, I received many calls from Ms. Sandra Lang. They went on. Nothing as ugly as the one you just heard, but.
So did you receive calls from Ms. Lang both before and after you got this call?
Yes.
Just
yes,
a second.
Your Honor.
So you received phone calls from her either both before and after this obnoxious
Your
call?
Honor. Yes,
Is that
Your
right?
Honor.
Well, then,
Your Honor.
Then that suggests to me that she wouldn't resort to this. She was taking care of it herself.
Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
I have a note that she's admitting to owe the money that she signed. This is dated September 19th.
Let me see.
Plus, there was phone calls from Mexico. It adds up to $4,752.23.
However, you signed a note with her for $3,874, right?
Yes.
Okay. She entered into an agreement with you folks that you were going to go on a trip. It wasn't going to cost you any money. It wasn't a trip that you were planning. You invited other people to go with you. You ended up paying for everybody else. And there's no question that Ms. Guerra believes that there was some sort of a problem with miscommunication with Alaska Airlines or with the booking agent, with not reading the fine print, all of which has absolutely nothing to do with you.
But Bob did see this. Bob is the one that chose this hotel. After we had made the change with the people, we're looking at the brochure together, and that's when we saw this hotel. There's pictures of it.
Doesn't make any difference. You changed the hotels. You were
with
under...
Bob being aware of making the change. He saw all-inclusive, I'm sure.
The $3,800 was for what? Just food and drink? Or for the hotel room?
The hotel room, I believe, in food and drinks.
Right. They were you know, the truth of the matter
was,
is, they might even say, well, we can absorb some of the food because you have to eat even if you're home. But as far as the room is concerned, as far as everything else is concerned, you know, Carlos, their room, they're not responsible for that. But ultimately, you promised them a free vacation. The only one who got a free vacation was you. You signed the note for $3,874.
Plus interest.
You'd be lucky to get your $3,874. And judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,874. And Ms. Guerra, let me tell you something about the harassment. It is possible that somebody from their side caused this person to call you and make threats for the money. Certainly, I don't approve. As a matter of fact, I hardly disapprove of these kinds of threatening tactics. I think that they are disgusting. But I'm not satisfied that Ms. Lang was responsible for them, because she had been having ongoing communication with you both before and after you got these phone calls. So clearly she wasn't relying on anybody else to do her dastardly deed for her. She was trying to take care of the business herself. So your counterclaim is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Out the back door to your right, please.
I think that Bob and I should have paid for it half and half. We both made the mistake by choosing a different hotel.
She wasn't going to pay it. She had no attempt. There was no attempt made to pay this.
Don't ever invite strangers on a vacation.
Justice is served.
Yes.
And now the next case.
Parties on Huckabee versus Harris. Step forward, please.
25-year-old Latrice Huckabee says her attorney, 32-year-old Wendy Harris, didn't do her job in family court. She wants her money back.
Miss Huckabee, are you ready for me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. You had a lawsuit pending in which court?
Long Beach Municipal Court.
This lawsuit against the defendant is that you hired her to represent you. You retained her as a lawyer to represent you in a case that you had pending.
Yes.
And you want your $500 back, the $500 that you paid her because you didn't like her service. Right?
Yes.
How did you find her?
I found the defendant through Mercury Paralegal. I paid them to do all the paperwork regarding the case. And then they instructed me that Ms. Harris could represent my case because they couldn't come to court with me. I needed someone to present my case for me.
So you went to Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Did you have another court date after you went to Ms. Harris?
Yes.
And what happened at that court date?
At that court hearing, Ms. Harris arrived at 9:30 to 9:45, and we had to be put on second call because she wasn't there when we were called.
Okay, that sometimes happens. So she was late, but she got there about 9:30.
Yeah.
Okay. And did she remain with you in the morning?
She stayed from 9 to 12.
Okay. And then they said, everybody go and come back for lunch.
At 1:30.
And at 1:30, did she come back?
She had to be called back. I called her because she did not show up. She was not there when the court came back in session. I had to call her twice.
And what time did she come back?
She came back at 1:30.
When she was told to come back?
Yeah, she came back at 1:30.
Okay, so the court told her to come back at 1:30. She came back at 1:30, but you were there before 1:30. You didn't see her, so you called her. That's what you just told me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Then what happened?
The whole time that when she came at 9:30, I had been trying to talk to her about the case or go over the case. She would not speak to me in the courtroom. She would not speak to me at all. I called her numerous times. She would not return any phone calls.
Did she ever return your call?
Never.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Was this prepared by anyone other than yourself?
No, Your Honor, I prepared it myself.
Nothing offends me more than a lawyer who doesn't do work for money.
Closed captioning, sponsored in part by Real Cases, Real People, Judge Judy. Latrice Huckabee wants money back from attorney Wendy Harris for not doing a good job. Wendy says she did her job.
Did you receive phone messages from her?
There was phone messages that were received prior to me even being retained as an attorney. If indeed she wanted me as her attorney, she needed to retain me. And upon her retaining me, then I would return her phone calls. I left word with my secretary to contact the plaintiff to tell her to come in and sign the declaration, which was subsequently signed. And
So
I
she
filed
did come in?
Yes, she did.
You got that call? Did you go in and sign something in the office?
Yes, we signed it.
Let me see what you signed.
But the declaration was originally, everything was done through Mercury Paralegal.
That has nothing to do with her. That has nothing to do with her. Was this prepared by anyone other than yourself?
No, Your Honor, I prepared it myself.
Was this prepared from notes as a result of a conversation that you had with her, or from anything else?
Prepared from notes, plus prepared from numerous pages that the plaintiff had written, plus a transcript from a prior proceeding, which I had to read through. And
but it wasn't prepared from any other documents that were furnished to you?
No.
Listen.
Yes.
She transcribed not only information she got from you, but from those notes and a transcript of a prior proceeding. You had a transcript of a prior proceeding?
Yes.
And she prepared a very lengthy document.
Yes.
Look, Ms. Huckabee, this document alone, and going through that file, which I see has your notes in it, correct? Yes. That alone is worth $500. Then she came and spent several hours in court with you. This lady earned her $500.
But how is that? When she
just,
never
how is
returned-
that? I just explained it to you.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Want justice? Call 1-888-800-JUDY. On the internet, judgejudy.com.
Nothing offends me more than a lawyer who doesn't do work for money. Believe me, and believe me, I'd be down her throat in a flash if I felt that she took advantage of you and didn't do work for the money that you paid her. But just because you paid her the $500 didn't mean your case was going to be resolved that day.
I know that it wasn't going to be resolved that day.
Of course.
But she wasn't on time, so we could get it out and get it over with.
No, come on, listen to me. If she's not on time, because she came at 9:30, you think you should get your $500 back?
Basically.
Your case is dismissed, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy, Stephen Rea, 45, wrongfully fired her as a live-in housekeeper. Stephen is countersuing for theft and making terrorist threats.
All rise. Order in the court, please. Your Honor, this is case number 313 on the calendar in the matter of Turner versus Rea.
Thanks, Bird.
Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Please have seats.
Ms. Turner, I've read your papers. It appears that you were hired by the defendant as a live-in housekeeper and nanny for his children. And after some period of time, you were fired. You want to be compensated for that. Mr. Rea has a cross-complaint because he said after you were fired, you purposely destroyed some of his property. Is that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, Ms. Turner, I would like you to tell me why you think that you have a cause of action here. Did you have an employment contract?
Well, Your Honor, it wasn't an employment contract. What it was for me to live in with him. We were supposed to share everything equally. I have a young daughter. I was supposed to move in with Mr. Rea so he can go to work. During the day, I was supposed to watch his son. And during the night, if I wanted to get a job or go back to school, he would watch my daughter. That's how the situation was supposed to be. It was a split, equal situation, the whole thing.
You mean you weren't paid any salary?
I was not paid, no.
So you answered an ad in the paper?
Correct, ma'am.
Did you speak to Mr. Rea when you responded to the ad?
No, I spoke to his daughter, Tammy.
That's you. Do you have a copy of that ad?
Yes.
I'd like to see it, please. It says live in, M parent, that's male parent, that's you.
Yes.
Seeks a female parent, that's you, to take care for 3-year-old and share cooking, cleaning, must be clean and stable. All right, and no salary was discussed.
No salary was discussed, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So that she was going to live in, rent-free, have her food, utilities, phone, and everything else paid for. In exchange, you were going to help take care of the house, and you were supposed to provide care for her child. You have one child?
Correct.
How old?
She just turned 1.
If she wanted to work in the evening. Was that the arrangement?
Correct.
Okay. And it didn't work out?
No. Well, when I talked to Tammy, I called the ad on a Tuesday. I called again on a Wednesday because on the voicemail it was a female's voice, so I thought the ad got filled. I didn't know it was her car phone. I called her again Wednesday. We talked. We arranged to meet that day on Wednesday. She came out and she explained to me the situation between Mr. Rea and his ex-wife. She said that he needed someone to move in with him to take care of Tony because he needed to go back to work and daycare was too expensive. She said, when you move in, everything will be like a family. You're like a family. You're part of the family. We have cookouts. We have vacations. You're automatically invited. I was like, okay. She was like, yeah, we go to Jamaica, this, that, this, that. You're
all right, so it was going to be a more informal arrangement with no salary.
Correct.
Fine, but it didn't work out. How long were you actually there?
I was there for, Your Honor, for 9 days, 10 days.
9 or 10 days, relatively short period of time.
Correct.
And what happened in that 9 or 10 day period?
Well, The night I went and moved in with Mr. Ray, they were telling me over and over again not to be nervous, to relax, that if I wanted to do anything, I could. You know, they gave me the keys to the car. If I wanted to go out, I can go out. I stayed with them Monday through Friday. I did everything with the kids, whatever. Friday night, I wanted to take my daughter to her, you know, godmother's house to visit. I went out. I came back around 11 o'clock. I went upstairs to talk to Mr. Ray and let him know I was home. And I went in there and he said, Tony's got a fever. That's his young son. I was like, okay. And he's like, and Tammy's coming to pick you up tomorrow. It's not going to work out. I was like, what do you mean? I don't want to talk about it. She's going to come pick you up and move you back to your mom's house.
Okay, let me stop there. What happened during that week, sir, that suggested to you that this arrangement wasn't going to work out?
Well, when we had talked to her originally, she's supposed to know that I expected somebody to be clean, somebody that could cook, somebody that knew how to swim. I have a 16 by 32-foot pool that my son loves. He's been swimming since he's been a year and a half.
Okay.
And if the weather is nice, he's going to go into the pool.
Okay.
All right, so that was the main concern there. If he was to go in or fall in, you know, to where somebody could go ahead and come to his aid. In this case, she could not. And as far as the cooking, she was good at going at McDonald's or buying something from the store, you know, already just about prepared with directions on how to, you know, do it, throw it in the oven or whatever. The cleaning, I had to mention to her about the front bathroom, which was hers and her daughter's, about the rings in the tub. There was a high ring and there was a low ring. And I didn't feel
You weren't satisfied?
No, not at all.
So you told her that it wasn't working out?
Correct.
Did you give her any sort of notice when she was going to have
No,
to leave?
no, that's when the police came over to the house a few times. And they
Why?
informed me, well, because I called, you know, I wanted her out of the house. And
Well,
that's
just
when
a
I was
minute,
informed.
let me stop you. If you told her it wasn't working out, why didn't you just leave?
When I asked him, because I told him, I said, Mr. Ray, I said, Stephen, how can you just tell me that Tammy's coming to pick me up tomorrow? You know my mother's renting out my room. I can't go back and live with her. Well, that's not my problem. I was like, what do you mean it's not your problem? And throughout the week, Tammy, when we got interviewed, Tammy told me that if I wanted to get a job or go back to night school, I could, or go to night school, I could. Throughout that week I was with Mr. Ray, I asked him if, you know, I'm going to go ahead and get a job so I can get some money. Oh, don't worry about it. Stay a couple weeks. Get familiar with the house. I was like, okay. The next day I would say something else. There was a paper sitting there. I was looking at the paper. I got up to get something. He threw the paper away. He did not want me to get a job for any reason.
Ms. Turner, it wasn't working out.
Right.
You didn't have an employment contract with him.
Right.
He has a young child, and he's allowed to say, for whatever reason, I'm not comfortable. You understand that?
Well, I went through all...
So, I'm going to come back to it. Why were the police called? Because you refused to leave?
No, I went through the whole situation with him asking that questions. I said, well, Mr. Ray, fine, I'm going to take you to court. When he said he didn't care. He said, you're going to take me to court? You're going to take me to court? He came at me and rushed at me. He pushed me. I said, okay, fine, I'm going to call the cops. I went downstairs, got the phone. I called the cops. He called the cops on his other phone. The cops came out there. That's why they came out there.
Okay. Why were the police called again?
The police were called out there because, number one, she would barricade my bedroom door, wouldn't allow me to go out, and as far as attacking her, that is an all-out lie. She would push on me. Now, what I did do was try to get by the door and turn sideways, okay, with the door casing to my face. And this is her so-called attack.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
He got me in a situation where I had nowhere to go. I have a young daughter that I had to take care of. He made an accusation saying that I was going to burn his house down. I never said anything like that whatsoever.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Tony Turner says she was hired by Stephen Rea as a live-in housekeeper. She is suing for wrongfully firing her. Stephen is countersuing for destruction of property and making terrorist threats.
Ms. Turner, you do not have a cause of action because you do not have a contract. Just as, Ms. Turner, if you went to his house and you found that his house was a pit, dirty, disgusting, not a safe place for your daughter, you would have the absolute right to say to him, I'm leaving. Listen to me. You would have the absolute right to say, I'm leaving. Or if he turned out to be the kind of person that you couldn't live with because he was mean, nasty, irascible, whatever, you had an absolute right to leave. Similarly, without some sort of a formal living or formal contract of employment that says...
It was verbal, Your Honor.
No.
No, when I moved in there with him, my mom called me actually it was the first night I was there. She asked me when I was going to come out and get the rest of my stuff. My mom was renting out my room. He's like, oh, it looks like you're going to have to stay here. I was like, whatever. Okay, Your Honor, I was there. I did everything for Mr. Ray. I cooked, I cleaned. It was supposed to be a shared situation.
Turner.
The reason why I'm filing this lawsuit, Your Honor, is because he got me in a situation where I had nowhere to go. I have a young daughter that I have to take care of, and I had to call someone because the second night the cops were called out there, he made an accusation saying that I was going to burn his house down. I never said anything like that whatsoever.
Miss Turner, you're not following me. You knew this man for 1 week. He is not family. He is not, listen to me, he is not related to you. He was an employer. You made certain life's choices, which was you told your mother that you were going to be working here. If you were smarter, you would have said to your mother, and if your mother was smarter, she would have said, before I go and rent her room, I'm going to wait a month and see if this works out, because it may not work out. After all, my daughter and her year-old child are going to live with a stranger, and who knows if it's going to work out. He's not responsible for that, Miss Turner. Listen to me. You're not listening. You want to talk. He's not responsible for that. And if you had gone to his home and you found that he was some sort of a pervert, and you called your mother and said, listen, I can't stay here. I'm afraid for myself and I'm afraid for my daughter, he couldn't sue you for breaching a contract because you didn't have a contract. This is a life circumstance, and you have to be a two-process thinker, Miss Turner. If you go to work for somebody that you don't know, from an ad that you found in the paper, you say to your mother or wherever you're living, listen, I want to hold my room for a couple of weeks. Let me see if it works out. If it works out, I'll let you know. Then you can rent my room. Do you understand?
Correct.
All right. Now, let's talk about your cross-complaint. You say that she purposefully damaged your property?
Yes.
What property?
32-inch television set.
How did she do that?
Poured a bottle of beer in it.
Did you see her do that?
No, I did not see her.
Well, did anybody that you have here see her do that?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Look, this is an unfortunate circumstance, but it happens all the time, Miss Turner. It happens all the time that you start a job and it doesn't work out.
But the 3-year-old kid, Your Honor, they said the kid was tormented. The mother left him 12 times. The first night I was there, the kid was calling me Mommy. They asked me if I had a problem with that. I said no.
What does that have to do with your lawsuit?
Because I got attached to the kid. He's going to ask me to leave. He knows I had nowhere else to go. He knew I had nowhere else to go.
Miss Turner, he's not your father. He's your employer.
Right, I know.
So you have to plan. How old are you?
I'm 19.
So you know in the future. It's a good lesson. And your lesson is, if you went into an employment agreement, you don't burn your bridges until you see that it's going to work out. You got it? Good. Your lawsuit's dismissed. Your counterclaim, sir, listen to me carefully. If you can't prove that you purposely damaged any of your property, your counterclaim is dismissed.
Well, I can prove that she was the last one with my digital mobile phone. Okay? I have a mobile phone bill. All right. Well, ask if she knows anything about the mobile phone before I go any further.
Oh, do you really want to go there? He said that we were going to go to Jamaica. I needed to call up to Michigan. I need to call up to Michigan and get my birth certificate. That's what I did.
How many calls did you make on the mobile phone?
I need 2. 2 or 3 to Michigan, because I needed to get a hold of my cousin so she can call the hospital so I can get my birth certificate to go to Jamaica.
Else on there?
I'm talking about the theft of the mobile phone. She was the last person with the phone. And also the spare battery and the charger is gone.
Do you have the phone?
No, Your Honor. The phone that he gave me doesn't even have a battery charger to it.
The digital, not the other one.
The phone you gave me just had, it's the little phone where you clip the battery in. It didn't have a charger to it. I gave that phone back to you. The police took it from me.
Which police officer took it from you?
The last time, the night before I left, they took it from me. I had to ask to use the phone. They came and brought the phone back to me so I can use the phone to call a friend of mine. They took it back from me.
So the police have it?
The police
Do you remember the name of the police?
Wrong. I have a witness to verify she was the last one with it in her company.
I'm sure he can get another one. He has several phones.
It's not the fact about getting another one.
What? Yes, you're the daughter.
I was on the phone. Oh, my name's Tracy, by the way, not Tammy. I was on the phone with her when they were arguing. He was like, give me my phone back. She was like, not until you give me my beeper, because he took her beeper
she had both
until she would give his mobile phone back. So I'm like on the phone arguing with her, trying to get her to give him the phone back, which I told her if you give him the phone back, he'll give you your beeper back.
Did you ever get your beeper back?
Yes. He threw it in the house. I was like, oh, you're going to throw my beeper, okay? And I was standing outside.
So what did you do with the phone?
He went and picked it up because I was standing outside.
You said to her, he'll get the phone back when I get my beeper back.
Right. He gave me the beeper back. I gave him his phone.
Where did you put the phone?
He got it. I gave it to him in his hand.
I did not get it.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
She wasn't going, is what she was saying. She was going to make it miserable for me or whatever the case may be.
Closed captioning sponsored in part by Real Cases, Real People, Judge Judy. Tony Turner says she was wrongfully fired and evicted as a live-in housekeeper. Stephen Reyes says she stole and made terrorist threats.
Mr. Reyes, when she got back her pager, did you have your phone in your hand?
No.
Yes.
Why did you then, sir, give her back
The pager was left on the kitchen table. She snatched it off the table and had both of the mobile phones. She keeps referring to the regular mobile phone, which is outside right now.
That's the
okay,
phone
I'm talking
you let
about
me
the
use.
digital one that she had stole. All right. Now, she was in the kitchen with the regular mobile. All right. And while the cops were there, I said, "Look, that's my phone. I'd like to have it back." But she was playing the game with the phones before the way I didn't get them. But I never seen the digital after that. And she kept stating to the police she didn't know anything about it. But my neighbor was over at the house at the time with the kids in my child's room, with her ranting and raving, okay, with both of the phones. Now, after the incident, and I got the regular mobile phone from the cops, from her, I still had never seen the digital, and I had left and went over to my neighbor's house with my son. All right, because they said we need to separate or whatever. She wasn't going, is what she was saying. She was going to make it miserable for me or whatever the case may be.
Why don't I make it miserable?
But the bottom
Your
line
Honor, the reason why we had the mobile phone is because Stephen couldn't get his phone turned on in the house. So
What difference does that make?
He had his own phone, the digital, the more expensive one, he had himself. He gave me the little cheap phone with the battery.
Miss Turner.
That's the phone I had.
You keep talking. Do you see my mouth moving?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have his phone?
No, I do not. The police gave it. I'm sorry.
Did you have his digital phone?
Not his digital phone. The one he let me use the day I moved in is the one I gave back to Mr. Reyes.
Now, the digital phone, when was the last time you saw that?
He had it.
When was the last time you saw it, is my question.
When we were outside. We were standing outside because the battery in the phone I had was going dead. And at that point, I said, forget it. He gave me back my pager. I gave him his phone.
Your Honor,
I was talking to Tracy, and the battery
Mr.
was
Reyes,
dead.
it was a bad experience, sir. I'm not satisfied that you are going to be able to establish to my satisfaction by proof that I'm totally comfortable with. And as I said to you, it's very possible she has the phone.
Well, if my last call on my mobile phone bill is going to show a number that I don't even know the number, okay?
Was
it's
that
the number that she put on this piece of paper to
Listen
sue
to me.
Yes.
Was that before or after she was ultimately put out of your house? Was that number called before?
Before she was put out of my house.
Before.
Because I left my house to go to my neighbor's.
So
and
listen,
the digital phone
listen
was still,
to me.
Yes, go ahead.
Why don't you listen?
Because
if you had a bill that showed me that on the 1st of July she was put out of the house, and on the 3rd of July she made a phone call, you got a bill that showed a phone call that she made, I would say that's proof that she's got it. But you have a phone bill that says that the last call...
I have a witness.
Listen to me! That the last phone call that was made on that phone was while she was still at the house. Is that what that bill is?
Yes.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. Want justice? Call 1-888-800-JUDY. On the internet, judgejudy.com.
Mr. Reyes.
Yes.
Is it possible? Is it probable? Yes. Can you prove it to my satisfaction? Your counterclaim? I don't think so. And as far as your lawsuit is concerned, you got to learn.
Not even for the mental anguish, Your Honor?
What mental anguish?
What mental anguish?
What mental anguish?
I have a young daughter that I need to take care of. I was in a situation
You
where I did
worked
not know...
for him for a week.
Correct.
Good. Correct. How many times do I have to say it to you, madam? You're 19 years old. I know you're young. I know you have a responsibility. You have a child. Before you take... You don't want the full measure of what I have to say to you, or maybe you do. Before you take your year-old child into a household that you know absolutely nothing about. You don't know anything about him. You don't know anything about his daughter. You don't know anything about anything that's going on there. If you're smart and if you're responsible, you say to your mother, look, I want to leave the baby home for a few days, a week. Let me see what this is all about before I take my child into an unknown environment. That's what you do if you're responsible. But then you don't stand there like a crybaby and say to me, I have mental anguish. Of course, everybody who's fired has mental anguish. Think of all the people who were downsized, who worked for companies for 35 years, and all of a sudden, they come in one day, they get a pink slip, and they say, you're fired, we no longer need your services. Listen!
He wanted to have sex with me, and I refused.
Oh, you're full of baloney. You're full of baloney.
No.
This case is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may
You're
step
a liar.
out. Come on.
You're a liar.
You going to jail, too.
Out the back door to your right.
I am
Out
not
the back
going
door
to
to
jail.
your right.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy, cover charge plus pain and suffering after they were kicked out of the strip club.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 317 on the calendar in the matter of Fridley Funky versus the Wild Boys Show Club. Yeah. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Ladies, gentlemen, have a seat.
You own a club.
Yes, ma'am.
And from reading between the lines in these papers, this is a male strip club. Is that right?
That's correct.
You two ladies were patrons at that club.
That's correct.
And had you gone there before?
That's correct.
How many times?
Ooh, quite a few times. As a matter of fact, I started going ever since I turned 18, which is around July. We're regular customers. And
I've been going for over a year, ever since they've opened.
We'll get to the lawsuit in a minute. Why?
it's fun to go, you know, for occasions, birthdays, bachelorette parties.
Okay. Your lawsuit says that on this particular night you went to the club, you were rejected for bad behavior. And you were rejected at a time that you had just ordered a round of drinks. You had $65 worth of drinks on the table. You want to be reimbursed for the drinks, for the cover charge, and a lot for your pain and suffering. So what time did you get to the club on that particular night?
Around 8 o'clock, Your Honor, when the club first opened.
Were you told that your behavior during the course of the evening was unacceptable?
No, Your Honor.
Never?
No, it's normal behavior of any...
Like what?
Like, let's say, for example, I was invited up on stage to tip a dancer. And at that point, he had moved his T-bar, and I sticked $1 in, and I was kind of dancing with him. And then as I stepped down off the stage, the manager, Shelly, grabbed me by the arm
Who's
and
Shelly?
took me.
This is Shelly, my
She's
manager.
right there.
Step up.
She grabbed my arm and took me down off the stage. It was, you know, completely humiliating. They never warned me to get down off the stage, you know.
Were you ever up on the stage before?
I've stepped up on the stage to give the dancers tips, just like I did that evening.
Well, you told me you did a little more than just give them a tip. You were up there dancing.
Well, yeah, you kind of move with the music.
Your Honor.
Okay.
It is
So-
posted outside of the door, all the rules and regulations as well.
What do they say?
The rules state that the ladies are not allowed to get up on stage unless directed to by a dancer. They
Well,
state
she says she was invited up on the stage by a dancer.
that's incorrect. Sebastian was the dancer in question.
You were the dancer.
Yes, Your Honor, I am.
You're Sebastian.
My name is Sebastian.
How long have you been dancing at the club?
Almost about a year now.
Okay. Do you remember what happened with this young lady?
Yes, I was on stage performing and I was dancing. The ladies came in with the party. When I was doing my performances, she came up and was to dance. There's 3 steps.
You went too fast for me. She came up and she what?
She was coming up to tip me.
To tip you?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the ladies either stay out on the floor and tip and I'll kneel down, or they come up the steps. There's 3 steps, and the 3rd step is kind of wide for them to stop. And so I opened my T-bar for her to tip. So when I opened it up, she proceeded to step on the stage, and she was going along with the music, trying to dance with me. I then kind of stepped away. I've been fined before. I've been fined for $1,000 for just grazing a person. But so when she had her hands on me.
What do you mean? You're fined if you do what?
I've been fined before
For
just
what?
for just my buttocks, grazing a woman's breast.
It was a undercover police officer. That was he was.
You mean you're not allowed to? The dancers aren't allowed to have any physical contact with the patrons.
They can. What they can and can't do. What they can do is the women are allowed to touch us on the pectoral muscle, down the stomach. They can touch our legs. They cannot touch our buttocks or our genital area. And his fine was because his buttocks touched one of the police officers on her breast, and he received.
How did that happen? I'm trying to figure that out.
Same here. You know, and the weird thing about that, Your Honor, is that we don't find out about the fine till like 3 months later.
Your behind touched the female undercover officer's breast.
I can give you a demonstration.
Just a second.
Things must be different in Tucson.
I can give you a demonstration of how that would happen.
I'm dying to see that.
Okay. Do you want me to do that with you or with...
Not with me, honey.
For instance, we'll move over here, so I have a little more room. If I'm dancing and say this is the police officer that gave him the fine, this is what he is allowed to do. And she is allowed to touch him right in this area. She can touch him here. Now, once he goes to turn around, and this is what happens.
I see. No, go no further. Back here. Okay. So she was dancing with you, and you were moving away from her because you had gotten a fine, and she persisted to, and she was still dancing on the stage.
Yeah, she proceeded to get on stage, and she was touching me. By that time, the manager came and asked her to step down.
Okay. Have a seat.
Thank you.
Manager.
Yes, ma'am.
So what happened when you asked her to step down?
I walked her down the stairs. I did grab her by the elbow and escort her down the stairs. I reminded her of the rules. These ladies have been coming to the club for a long time. A little while later, I had to remind Cassandra that she was not allowed on stage.
Well, who's Cassandra? That's you?
That's me.
Did you get up on the stage?
It was kind of.
The answer is yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so she went up on stage.
Yes, ma'am.
And then what happened?
A little while later, Mr. Valentine, Casey, came over and actually complained to me. Cassandra had grabbed his rear end.
Who was that?
Casey
That's you?
Valentine.
You were dancing too?
Yes.
Who grabbed you?
Cassandra.
Little one over here.
She had placed her hand on my butt, and I had explained to her, you know, you can't.
What'd you say to her?
I said, you know, you're not allowed to do that, 'cause she's been in there before, and she knows the rules. She's been there she's been a customer of mine for at least 1.5 years.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
We've never had a problem
He
before.
says that you touched him.
She got there.
He says that you touched him twice.
Well, they're gonna say whatever they can
I
say
believe
for
him.
her because she's.
I
she's their
believe
boss.
him.
And later today,
It was a verbal agreement. It all sounded good.
No, it was a
I was
verbal
going
agreement.
to marry this idiot.
Shh.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Cassandra Fridley and Tara Funke say they were kicked out of the Wild Boys strip club without getting their drinks. Club owner Sky says it is their policy to remove customers who misbehave.
At what point did you ask these ladies to leave?
Right after Cassandra grabbed Casey Valentine's rear.
For the second time?
Yes.
Okay, and they had just ordered a round of drinks?
Yes, they had.
And you said just leave the drinks on the table?
Yes. Our policy in our club is when you're asked to leave, you must leave immediately.
Ladies, you broke the rules. What do you want? You having a good time? You broke the rules.
No, the rules were not broke. I mean, like we explained, we were going up to the stage to tip the dancers. We were not actually on stage. She guided me off way before I even had a chance
Let
to,
me ask you this question.
step
Let's talk about common sense.
Okay.
Okay? This is their business.
Right.
You are a good customer, right? She is a good customer. Why in the world would you think that they would ask two good customers to leave if you hadn't done something wrong? Give me a reason. So they don't like you?
No, I think it has to do with their manager. I mean, to be honest, we've had problems with her in the past. It's been kind of like a jealousy issue. And I think the guys are more afraid to, they have to go along with whatever she says because she's their boss,
Who paid your $1,000 fine?
I paid the $1,000 fine, ma'am.
Out of your own pocket?
Yes, I did.
Here, sit down. Ladies.
We've never had a problem before.
He says that you touched him.
She got there.
He says that you touched him twice.
Well, they're gonna say whatever they can
I
say
believe
for
him.
her because she's.
I
she's their
believe
boss.
him. Why don't you two ladies try a museum?
If
You have no case. Your case is nonsense. You went to their club. You didn't do the right thing. They had an absolute right to eject you. Once they ejected you, they made a determination that they didn't want to risk their liquor license or additional fines, and they chose to tell you, we don't want you to come back, which is their right. Get a life. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Out the back door to your right, please.
We enjoy going to this club. It's a great club. The main point is that we like to go back.
We just went to try to have a fun time, and I don't think, you know, she has the right to pick on us. And of course, her dancers are going to stick up for her because otherwise they'll lose their job.
You know, I feel bad because they're good, great customers. I've known them a while, but that doesn't give them a right to come in there and grab the guys, pull their T-bars down, and so on. So I feel like justice was served.
And now the next case.
Party's on. Johnson versus Bell. Step forward, please.
28-year-old bartender Stacy Johnson claims 27-year-old service rep Richard Bell owes her for her 800 phone line and rent.
Miss Johnson, you live in Colorado?
Correct.
And Mr. Bell, you had been living in Texas.
That's correct.
You met each other while you were visiting some family in Colorado?
That's correct.
Yes.
Spent a little bit of time together?
Yes.
According to these papers, reading between the lines, fell instantaneously in like.
True.
And you, Miss Johnson, did a very dumb thing.
Yes.
You gave him your 800 number.
Correct.
Now, did you go out and purchase this 800 number in order to give it to him, or had you had it?
I've had it for 2 years prior to meeting him.
Why do you need an 800 number? I'm just curious.
It was something the phone company gave me to switch to a long-distance service.
So you gave him the 800 number so that he could use it to call you?
Correct.
Which you did a lot.
Yeah.
Now, what did you say to him when you gave him this 800 number?
Call me when you need to, but don't call me too much because it's going to cost me money.
Okay. Is that what she said to you?
Yeah.
Call me when you need to. So you called a lot. And then eventually you moved back from Texas to Colorado. And you moved in with her.
No.
She says you moved in with her.
No. I moved with my mom. I stayed there occasionally.
How occasionally?
Twice, 3 times a week.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I brought him out here. He left me for another woman after the relationship deteriorated because he's basically a gigolo.
Closed captioning, sponsored in part by Real Cases, Real People, Judge Judy. 28-year-old bartender Stacy Johnson claims 27-year-old service rep Richard Bell owes her for her 800 phone line and rent.
Now, you say he actually lived with you for about 2 months.
Correct.
Tell me how that came about.
From all the telephone calls on the 1-800 number.
All right, that he was going to come to stay with you.
To live with me.
To live with you. Tell me about your arrangement when he moved in.
Before he left Texas to come to Colorado, there was an understanding, an agreement between both of us where he said he would help me pay the 800 bill.
You remember that conversation?
Yeah, in full. It was to the point where the phone calls, I mean, they were wanted. I mean, they were accepted.
Well, I understand that, but did you have a conversation with her where she said to you, you know, I'm getting my phone bills and I really can't afford to pay them?
No, it wasn't to that extent, no.
Well, what did she say to you, sir?
Basically, nothing as far as the 800 bills was concerned. It was just call.
Okay, and when you got here, what happened, sir?
Then the relationship began breaking up, and...
Okay, but before it actually broke up, she had a conversation with you about the phone bill when you were staying there 2 or 3 days a week?
That bill as well as other bills.
Okay, so there was a conversation about bills.
Right.
While you were still a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Correct.
And according to you, sir, what were the conversations about the bills? Let's start with the phone bill first.
How were they going to get paid?
And what did you say?
That I was willing to help.
So did you help?
Yeah.
How did you help?
Well, when I could, because when I first came here, I wasn't working. Therefore, I didn't have much money.
Well, according to both of you, this relationship, once you moved back, only lasted a couple of months. So you began working when? February.
Roughly, true, January, actually.
And you stayed together until February. You didn't move out until February.
Right.
So how much money did you give her towards the phone bill?
Roughly 100.
Roughly 100. That was a good number. Ms. Johnson, let me tell you what your problem is. Even according to you, you gave him your 800 number and you did not have a contract with him. A verbal contract. A verbal contract would have been, Hun, because we really like each other, we want to keep this relationship going, and because you don't have a job, which was your first mistake. No job, problem. But you did it. I'm going to give you my 800 number. But if you use it, you're going to have to be responsible for the bill.
Correct.
Now, even according to you, you didn't say that to him. You said, here's my 800 number. Use it, but don't overuse it because it'll be a big bill. That's what you said.
He wasn't working. So therefore, I brought him out here. He left me for another woman after the relationship deteriorated because he's basically a gigolo. So
how much did this relationship cost you?
A lot. Would you like to see?
No, why don't you tell me?
Well, the 800 bill was $1,551. 3 months of rent.
Were you living alone at the time he moved out?
When he moved in with me? Yes, I was.
So it didn't really cost you anything extra. He just moved in.
Yes, it did.
What?
Emotional stress.
Well,
I know. But that was my own fault.
Right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Want justice? Call 1-888-800-JUDY. On the internet, judgejudy.com.
There was never a set agreement. You move in here, Mr. Bell, I want you to come in here, and this is my home, but we're going to share the bills 50-50. At the end of every month, you're going to give me $200 for rent and $50 for this. There was never that kind of understanding.
Well, yes, there was.
Ms.
It was a
Johnson?
verbal agreement. It all sounded good.
No, it was a
I
verbal
was going
agreement.
to marry this idiot.
Shh, shh. Miss Johnson,
Yes,
how old are you?
28.
Bad judgment. You didn't marry him. So the lesson cost you $1,000. Now, Mr. Bell, don't you feel as if you are at least morally responsible for some of these bills?
But we're not together anymore. Therefore, I feel like I'm not responsible for anything. I'm not responsible for a rent that she's paying. This is due
I'm
on
not
the
talking
first
about
of the
rent.
month. I'm not
Rent is
responsible
rent.
for anything.
Rent is rent.
We're not
I mean,
together anymore, so
What does that have to do with anything?
I'm asking you a moral. You
Well,
called her.
you couldn't be
Hey,
faithful.
don't talk to each other. I don't like that. I'm talking about a moral responsibility, especially since you're no longer together.
I'm not just going to leave her high and dry.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, I don't feel like I'm responsible for
The phone
800
call.
billing. Right.
Why is that?
Because, I mean, it wasn't my decision to have her get the 800 number or even give me the telephone number to call her.
The number wasn't.
The number was established before me and her even met.
Right.
Therefore,
Miss Johnson.
Therefore, she can give the number to anybody and
No,
have
she
them
didn't
call.
give it to anybody. She gave it to you. And you used it a lot. You used to call her a couple of times a day.
Right.
Didn't you think that that cost money?
Well, yeah, of course.
So didn't you feel some sort of an obligation to say, Hun, I want to help you out with this phone bill because it's my phone bill. If you call me, that's one thing. But if I call you, since I don't have a phone, I can't get credit, I can't do this and I can't do that, and you're so nice to me and giving me your card, I'm at least going to pay the phone bill.
I could not. I wasn't working.
Miss Johnson.
I paid what I could.
Yes.
Put a period and get on with it. You made a mistake. Your mistake was of short duration, and it ended up costing you $1,000. But this is not a lawsuit. Case is dismissed, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
I felt that he owed me money, and he just left me high and dry for a drug addict.
Well, I still wish we could be friends, but it's evident that we cannot, so I'll leave it at that.